is 𝐾𝐇. This is my guide on how to beat Isshin the Sword Saint. It is the final guide I am making for my Sekiro journey. It's sectioned into 9 parts, with subsections that are easily navigable via timestamps listed in the description. In Part 1, I'll outline notes on this guide, why it's structured this way, the reason for its length, and what spheres of players this was intended for. I will also explain why the core of the guide, the move list, is presented with game footage that is Hudless. Part 2 covers guiding principles to secure your victory. They reveal the fundamental elements upon which this fight was designed. Following these tips will greatly simplify your challenge and reduce your frustrations. Part 3 is recommendations on your loadout and game settings. These will be the most viable options for consumables, prosthetics, and combat arts, using the least amount of resources to generate the highest levels of success, offensively and defensively. There will be detailed comparisons of consumables and combat arts. How long do each of them take? And how quickly can you defend yourself afterwards? I will go over stats and skills you can acquire to circumvent key vexations, and I will also recommend modifications to your game settings that can make a positive difference. Now we come to what constitutes the bulk of this guide, the move list. Each of the following parts is designated to the phases in order. Part 4 is for Geni's phase, with 21 move variations and 5 standard sword variations. Part 5 is for Isshin's first phase, which has 19 move variations. Part 6 is for all the move variations and combos shared between Isshin's second and third phases, 65 of them in all. And Part 7 covers all the unique moves that appear in Isshin's final phase, of which there are 5. I recorded a total of 165 fights, using aggressive and defensive playstyles. Some of them are completely passive, no attacking whatsoever. The purpose of all these attempts is to generate every possible scenario, showing, for your reference, how the AI can be triggered by your actions. Each of the moves are numbered and timestamped. They are first introduced by their number and name. Then, a demonstration is shown, without commentary, where the move is perfectly countered, with or without a follow-up attack. I then show the same clip again in slow motion, this time with narration, detailing for you the anatomy of the move. It tells how it looks and sounds during and how it ends. Aside from a standard method, I'll also suggest for you a number of viable options. For example, responding via evasions or interrupting these moves with what you have on hand. Following this, I'll show clips of whether or not the timing of the move can afford you the opportunity to attack or heal. For some of the heavier attacks, there are demos showcasing the success and failure of following up with a variety of prosthetics and combat arts. So you may decide for yourself what to select from your arsenal suited to your playstyle. I'll also show examples of what happens should you fail to counter perfectly or miss altogether. And most importantly, whether or not you're granted a healing window right after. Since there are so many moves, I have created trees for each phase, available also as downloadable images that you can access via links in the description. Part 8 is a demo of a full fight, with perfect counters and without commentary or HUD. This is for you to see and hear the flow of the fight, how moves transition from one to the next uninterrupted. Finally, in Part 9, I'll sit down with you to talk about the process of building this guide, my Sekiro journey, and why this is my final guide for this phenomenal game. Are you ready? Let us begin. Part 1. Notes on this guide. 1. The length of this guide. All of my guides are built with the intent to help you find enjoyment in the game. And of course, to beat bosses. It's my hope that you can emerge from this feeling inspired to get back into the arena and apply all the key knowledge you've acquired. To achieve this, you need to be well informed. I present to you every single moveset unleashed in Sekiro's final boss fight, indexed and explained. Any moveset could be problematic, therefore none should be neglected. I have listed the moves, all 115 of them, for you, timestamped for ease of reference. This move list is what contributes to the length of the guide. The moves are categorized so you'll know which ones are common or rare. Some I encountered only once out of 60 fights. Aries is pointing out that I'm contributing to the length of the guide by explaining the length of the guide, so we'll move on. 2. For whom was this guide intended? It's obvious that this guide was built mainly for those on their first playthrough. Through this lens, I chose the methods for approaching each moveset. These methods can be suited to anyone: players who prefer to remain aggressive, and players who prefer to build their confidence by carving out breathing rooms to heal, regenerate their posture, or simply to benefit from a moment of pause. Differing playstyles aside, these are still new players that I am keeping in mind. My goal is to help you beat him, to know what to expect while conserving as much of your resources as possible, so you'll have plenty of emblems left for emergencies. Combat in Sekiro grants us much creativity, especially versus human opponents. Most of the methods I demonstrate are acknowledged and commonly practiced by communities of experienced Sekiro players. These methods were chosen from much experimentation and repetition. So, whether your playstyle is zealous or conservative, I've removed the guesswork for you. With options that guarantee you the highest level of success balanced with minimal risk, your imminent victory is that much closer at hand. If a method, perhaps a popular one, is not listed, it's for 2 reasons. 1. I don't want a player to feel bogged down with information. New techniques continue to be discovered all the time. What's covered in the move list is more than enough for your first poning of Isshin. 2. If a method is emblem-heavy or one that requires a lot of practice to perfect, even if they deal immense damage, the scales are tipped against their favor. I'm intent on avoiding high-risk, high-reward approaches. This brings us to the topic of cheesing. I'm not adamantly against it, as mastering a cheese tactic still requires diligent repetition. I myself cheesed Isshin on my first playthrough, and even then, it took over 100 attempts, with a fight that lasted over 20 minutes. You spend an inordinate amount of time trying to get a cheese strategy to work, and you're taught only to watch out for a couple of moves. You chip away at your opponent's health and still get your ass handed to you by moves that catch you off guard, that you have to learn how to avoid anyway. In that amount of time, you could have learned to counter all these moves properly, the way the game intended. This also applies to over-reliance on prosthetics and combat arts. Some can be used to interrupt movesets, potentially eliminating the need for you to learn those attacks. But these require precise timings and openings. And what happens when your emblems run out? In the end, you're putting too much stock in the element of chance. I'm not proclaiming what approaches are right or wrong. The purpose of my project is to guide your way to conquering Isshin. It's not styled as one definitive way to defeat him. This is a video game. The highest priority should be having fun. For those of you possessed with the key desire to make use of all those skills and reflexes you've spent so long refining through so much hardship and so many well-deserved victories, it's high time for those moments of hesitation to lay themselves aside, replaced by assured confidence of what's undeniable. You will win. 3. Why Hudless? The decision to present the majority of the guide with Hudless game footage is one that took long and careful deliberation. Weighing the pros and cons, I concluded that it's more important for you to get a fuller view of the moves. It frees up your periphery so you can more easily pinpoint significant moments in a move as I describe it to you. Identifying tells how a move starts is crucial. Removing the HUD can even on a subconscious level affect your oral perception. Since combat in Sekiro is so rhythmic in nature, being able to recognize and replicate sound patterns is also of pivotal importance. I don't mean to persuade you to take the HUD off. It would be quite a sudden, drastic, and scary maneuver. While I understand the view of these clips will differ from your own gameplay, I feel seeing them without the HUD will ultimately give you the advantage of recognizing the moves in real time. The main purpose of presenting the move list and supplementing them with example footage of windows for attacking and healing, as well as ones showing outright failure, is to help you identify them, remove a large chunk of the perilous guesswork, and give your reflexes a better chance to hone themselves. Lastly, it's prettier without the HUD. You get to see more of Geni's and Isshin's beautiful faces, and I already recorded 165 fights and edited them down to over 600 clips, so... Part 2. Guiding principles to secure your victory. 1. Treat each phase as an individual boss fight. This fight is designed to intimidate you. You see a total of 4 phases, and already it feels insurmountable. It would therefore be of great benefit to break things down and adopt a different mindset. Instead of thinking, I need to beat this boss in as few attempts as possible, a more constructive way to go about it would be to treat each attempt as a sparring session. The goal is to target the moves that give you the most trouble, the ones that are the most difficult to identify, which trigger erroneous responses. With the move list to back you up, the more you practice your choice of maneuvers against these troublesome moves, the more ingrained your responses will be. It's all about transitioning your thought process from worrisome speculation to an instinctual plane, removing hesitation as much as possible from the equation. So, once you've targeted your list of problematic moves and can successfully deal with it, you'll naturally be able to conserve more healing items for the phases to come. This is how you win. 1 move at a time, 1 phase at a time. 2. Overcoming Geni syndrome. This guy, still persistently living, now empowered with a fancy new sword. Because he knows this as well as you do. You're better than him. Obviously. He's a minor annoyance that at this juncture takes just 30 seconds to dispatch. The problem is, while it does pertain to lore, his presence in the fight purposely adds a measure of negativity on a psychological level. It's natural for us to think, dude, I've faced you twice before, and here you are again? Are you serial? Thing is, he's not so different from his 3rd roof phase. Just swap lightning for the black blade. It's the only element designed to psych you out, and it can be dealt with in many, many ways. He's still as desperate as ever, still throwing himself at you with fervent combos that ultimately leave him wide open. And he kept his shirt off just for you. Show him the meaning of pwn. Insist on making it out of there with at least 9 gourds, preferably 10. Pop a pellet if necessary. 3. Simplify the fight. Everything you've learned after so many hours now culminates in this final epic duel. Your accuracy, patience, and timing, all of these are now put to the test. We've touched upon just how spectacularly long the move list is. However, if you adhere to just 6 rules that you're actually already familiar with, the fight becomes incredibly straightforward. Many of the move variations, particularly during the spear phases, do not make appearances. We'll go over these rules in a bit. First, peeling away all the layers of how intuitive the AI is, there are but two major challenges that serve as the pillars of this fight. Know them, and the battle already swings in your favor. Challenge number 1, Isshin's swift transitions and counterattacks. The fight becomes immediately more complicated when you're unable to counter-defend accurately. You are punished for blocking, for getting hit, for evading at the wrong time, for sneaking behind him, for presumptuously attacking too much or too soon. What was one simple move or combo that you've countered innumerable times can, without a moment's notice, instantaneously morph into another, deliberately catching you off guard. On the other hand, as your reflexes become more practiced, you'll find that the move list will be greatly reduced. The less time you spend in the arena, the less moves to contend with, the higher your chances of success. Challenge number 2, deceitful thrusts and sweeps. Hitting the wrong button in response to perilous attacks is without a doubt the one maneuver that gets us killed the most. And that's because his tells are feinted. He positions his hands and body in ways that so easily deceive us. What looks certain would be a sweep ends up as a thrust, and vice versa. When we get to the move list, I'll break down these tells. They are surprisingly easy to identify once you know what to look for. Never again will you be hoodwinked. That alone should increase your confidence tenfold. The 6 rules I mentioned earlier therefore pertain to the first challenge, Isshin's swift transitions and counterattacks, and will serve to simplify the fight for you. Rule number 1, stay up close and personal. With the exception of performing key evasions, it will always be to your advantage to maintain that face-to-face intimacy. Kissing distance, if you will. His AI will be less prone to surprising fluctuations. Moreover, staying close while employing the method of dodging iframes and remaining on the offensive can cancel certain combos altogether. When you face Gyobu, Speven Spheres, or the Mizen Monks, you always need to maintain spear tip distance to avoid the unfairness of clipping. Isshin, on the other hand, is a rare deviation from these spear-wielding foes, in that the accuracy of your interactions with his weapon is no longer dictated by distance. All the more reason to stay close. Rule number 2, stop dancing around. At this point in the game, this exceptionally damning reflex should be virtually eradicated. Understandably, it's a hard habit to kill, particularly for Soulsborne veterans. We now ought to be integrally familiar with our opponent's AI, how it functions in terms of their lock-on to us and their tracking abilities. While a select number of moves can be dodged, and are even designed that way, in particular heavy airborne attacks, the majority of moves presented to us throughout the game are meant to be countered via these Sekiro-based counter-defensive measures, namely deflecting, head stomping, and Mikiri countering. Should we attempt to dodge moves that are not meant to be dodged, we are reminded, ruthlessly. Of course, in the face of Isshin's ferocious onslaughts, escape is a very natural instinct that springs to the forefront. However, because of how intelligently he's able to track us, his follow-ups will more often than not find us, for which we pay dearly. So instead of moving away, we should apply our panic reflex elsewhere, as it were. Which brings us to the 3rd rule. Rule number 3, when in doubt, hold it up, or simply deflect at the ready. Small though our sword may be, it is our most reliable line of defense, one that costs no resources. Even against moves that shave off chunks of vitality upon unsuccessful deflections, it's still far better than receiving the full guardless brunt. We do have the umbrella for such situations, but more on that later. So when Isshin attempts to psych us out with his swift and cunning maneuvers, as long as they're not perilous attacks, we have but to hold our sword up. Stay sharp and keep your finger on that trigger. Rule number 4, count your hits. Unlike Geni, who enjoys throwing himself at us, Isshin does not grant us many opportunities to attack. Even after he chains his combos one after another, we can land maybe 1 or 2 fatality hits. He then not only blocks or deflects us, but quickly retaliates with merciless punishments. We must therefore familiarize ourselves with the few attack windows we have, not deviate from them, and attack sparingly. It does help to actually count your attacks out loud. Stop at 2 and deflect as quickly as possible. Rule number 5, wait to heal. Just as we don't have many windows for attacking, the same applies to healing. It's a real test of gumption to be at low health, your posture maxed, your periphery precariously in the red. Maintain your focus and continue with what you were doing prior to taking damage. Relief will come soon enough. There are actually a few more healing windows than the conventional ones. They'll be shown to you in the move list. Rule number 6, know your arena. This beautiful spread of silvergrass offers us more than enough space to duel with both Geni and Isshin. Still, be mindful of these environmental factors. 1. The grass being so tall can sometimes obscure our opponent's movements, making it difficult for us to discern their tells. If you're experiencing a lot of trouble in this regard, consider luring your opponent over to where the broken bridge is at. There's an ample enough dirt patch as well as the broken bridge itself, which should help take out some of the guesswork when anticipating your opponent's next moves. 2. When you feel the need to create distance, take care to look where you're running. The edge of the cliff could very well be right behind you, threatening a fall that takes off a significant chunk of health that could sometimes straight kill you, depending on your vitality at the time. 3. Obstacles that could affect your lock-on should also be steered clear of. The boulders and trees studded here and there, as well as the cliff walls. On this note, in Part 3, we'll be going over tips to circumvent technical issues. These rules sound simple enough, because indeed, all these layers of bells and whistles in the form of sword, spear, gun, and lightning are placed here, now, at the end of your journey, to test not only your skill, but your confidence. So aside from learning the most commonly performed moves as well as you're able to, do not let your courage be shaken. Let him dictate the fight. Let him come to you. His own attacks will be his downfall. Stay close, watch your footing, hold your ground, wait to heal, attack sparingly, and defend at the ready. Apply all that you've learned. Victory will then be rightfully yours. Part 3, Recommendations on Loadout and Game Settings. Here are preparations you can make under the following categories: stats, skills, consumables, prosthetics, and combat arts. These recommendations, with options available for every type of player, were weighed and considered with care, based on their efficacy, speed of execution, and level of expense. Let us go over them one by one. 1. Stats. At this point in the game, if you've combed through all areas, backtracked, and uncovered all secrets, you should have acquired the maximum of 10 prayer bead necklaces, amounting to 20 vitality. Each necklace therefore grants you an additional 10% of health and posture. Your attack power, acquired organically from conquering major bosses, should be at 13, although you could also be at 12 attack power, depending on whether or not you choose to face all the bosses. 2 of them are at endgame: Basement Dad and the Demon of Hatred, for which I also have complete guides. Their links are available in the description. Attack power not only affects the strength of your onslaughts, but is also directly linked to how much of your opponent's posture is built up via your counter-defensive measures. The higher your attack power, the quicker you'll be able to max out your opponent's posture. You might have missed the opportunity to access another memory-based location, which grants you 2 beads and a boss memory. I understand your concerns. However, the difference of 1 fewer each of necklace and attack power will not hamper your success rate. There is no need to grind for more attack power with the Dancing Dragon Mask, though I won't recommend against it if you feel it can offer you a sense of security. Even with 9 necklaces and 11 or 12 attack power, as long as you know the moves and what to expect, you're perfectly capable of slaying this boss in around 4 to 7 minutes. Furthermore, in the links section of the video's description, I have included a wiki page informing you of where all the prayer beads can be obtained. 2. Skills. We'll go over the skills you can acquire to bolster Wolf's key prowess in the order accessed at a sculptor's idol. The skills that enable better healing will not be mentioned, as they are usually acquired as soon as possible on a first playthrough. You will also find links in the description for how to access these skill trees. From the Shinobi Art skill tree, you can acquire mobility in the air, more emblems, and the ability to rack up more posture upon successful Mikiri counters. Therefore, you will need mid-air deflections, mid-air combat arts, a Shinobi's Karma body, a Shinobi's Karma mind, Mikiri counter, and Shinobi eyes. From the prosthetic art skill tree, you can get more use out of your prosthetics by acquiring abilities that chain their usage with sword attacks, as well as more emblems. You will need Chasing Slice, Fang and Blade, Mid-Air Prosthetic Tool, Projected Force, Sculptor's Karma Scars, and Sculptor's Karma Blood. The Ashina Art skill tree is without a doubt the most important one in the game, as it allows you to deal more posture damage with both attacking and deflecting, as well as receive less posture damage from sword-wielding foes. From here, you will need Ichimonji, Ascending Carp, Descending Carp, Flowing Water, and Ichimonji Double. From the Temple Art skill tree, you'll need Devotion, so the effective period of your sugar buffs is extended from 30 seconds to 45 seconds. And High Monk, a combat art that does not cost emblems and is also particularly formidable against Isshin. There is no need for you to grind for the Mushin Art skill tree. All 3 of the highest combat arts in there are needlessly thirsty for emblems, which you are better off conserving for emergencies. 3. Consumables. Coming up, I will show you clips of all viable buffs and healing items, accompanied by a timer displaying hundredths of a second, so you can see how quickly you'll be able to respond by holding block upon popping a consumable. The timer starts on the exact frame when Wolf begins to stir, signaling the start of the animation. The timer stops on the exact frame when his elbow reaches the highest stationary point, indicating the end of his block animation. We'll begin with sugars, followed by healing items and the ceremonial tanto. 𝐻𝐿. Precisely 2 seconds. 𝐼𝐸. 2.16 seconds. 𝐺𝐻𝐿. 2.54 seconds. 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼. 2.5 seconds. Persimmon. 1.94 seconds. Divine Confetti. 2.36 seconds. Healing Gourd. 1.58 seconds. Pellet. 1.66 seconds. Divine Grass. 1.6 seconds. Kuro's Rice Ball. 1.94 seconds. Tanto. 1.7 seconds. Tanto followed by Healing Gourd. 2.7 seconds. Tanto followed by 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐼. 3.64 seconds. Stalwart Shinobi of the Realm, Alpha 545 Gaming, requested the timing of Gachin, as it is absolutely viable for this fight. So, Gachin? 3.02 seconds. The quickest and slowest buffs are therefore 𝐻𝐿 and 𝐺𝐻𝐿 respectively. Your response time after taking healing items is also quite swift, allowing you to make use of the cooldown periods that come right after successfully countering or dodging Isshin's heaviest attacks. As mentioned before, all of these most optimum windows will be shown to you when we get to the move list. Here is some information regarding buffs. With the Devotion skill activated, you'll be able to enjoy 45 seconds of your sugar's effects. Confetti, on the other hand, is another matter. Its efficacy is a lengthy 60 seconds. While sugars cannot be stacked, they can be used in conjunction with confetti, providing you with either much greater attack power or a balance of protection and offense. These are the buffs recommended for this fight. If your playstyle is aggressive, consider equipping 𝐷𝐸𝐾 for dealing 12.5% more vitality and posture damage, as well as confetti for 25% more damage. The two consumables that veritably deserve their own shrine of reverence are Gorkon and Persimmon. Their power to preserve your posture is irrefutable. Gorkon provides you with an ironclad posture. Even when it's maxed to the red, your posture will never break. Persimmon, on the other hand, is even more impressive. Upon consumption, you'll be able to recover your posture from all sources, whether you're blocking, deflecting, attacking, or even taking damage. As it is not a sugar, it's not affected by the Devotion skill, and therefore lasts 30 seconds instead of 45. For your reference, I recorded some footage with the HUD on, where Wolf responds to two very similar combos. Here is one with Gorkon equipped. Here is another with Persimmon. And finally, one with nothing at all. Armed with Gorkon and Persimmon, you can learn through greater survivability Isshin's most devastating combos, the ones with rhythms that are the most challenging to grasp. You'll be able to fight longer and learn his key combos and tricks. Gorkon can be farmed from the spear-wielding Mizen monks at Hirata and the castle. Persimmon can be farmed from the monkeys at Senpo. 4. Prosthetics. One of the greatest pleasures in Sekiro is exploring all the ways prosthetics and combat arts can be chained together, if only for the visual enjoyment of admiring Wolf's uninhibited wreckage. Players who take gratification from maximizing their windows of offense can certainly get their kicks from exacting vengeance with poison, fire, the pokey spear, as well as interrupting heavy attacks with firecrackers and the axe. However, all of those are heavy on emblem usage, emblems that could very well be used instead for emergencies, while still being able to take advantage of their offensive properties. I am referring to two prosthetics. The first is undoubtedly the most popular one to equip for this fight, the Loaded Umbrella. The umbrella comes in 4 variants: the base version, the upgraded magnet version, the lilac, and the lotus or fire version. The base version is the only one that cannot be spun, which is useful for performing deflections. When we fling out our umbrella, or spin it, we are granted more iframes for our deflections than when we perform them with our sword. In other words, our chances of landing a perfect deflection is higher when using the umbrella. However, this comes at the cost of emblems. 1 emblem for every time the umbrella is thrown open, and 1 emblem for every time we spin it. It certainly adds up quickly, so I recommend resorting to the umbrella only for emergencies, as more or less a panic button. Use them for when you cannot evade singular attacks that have especially long wind-ups, the ones that are most difficult to deflect. In first playthrough difficulty, using the umbrella to tank unblockable attacks, the ones that take off health when you fail to deflect them perfectly, will still guard you against fatality damage. In addition, you can also use the umbrella as a form of attack via projected force, which is activated when you hit the attack button immediately upon retracting the umbrella. The marvelous thing about the umbrella is that in the case of projectile attacks, it stores energy. Whenever you successfully use the umbrella to guard yourself from a projectile attack, the force of that attack is absorbed into the umbrella and remains stored, even when retracted. In this way, you can accumulate stored attacks up to a maximum of 3, and therefore make supreme use out of projected force by unleashing all that energy back upon your opponent. Moreover, this stored projectile energy grants your projected force a ranged attack, meaning you can perform it at a distance. Besides the shuriken, it is Wolf's only other ranged attack in the game. This tactic is therefore worth considering when dealing with Isshin's gun attacks. To further demonstrate your prowess, know that the umbrella's projected force ranged attack can be stacked on top of its melee attack for more visceral destruction. Simply have stored attacks in your umbrella. You can tell it contains stored attacks when you can see it smoking. And then unleash projected force against an enemy within melee range. Both the melee and the ranged components of projected force will wreak havoc upon your target. One thing to take note of: if you choose to equip confetti, using the lilac and lotus umbrellas to unleash projected force will cause your confetti buff to be lost. Therefore, should you favor confetti, consider bringing the magnet umbrella so as not to waste the benefits of your precious buff. The other prosthetic I recommend is the Mist Raven. I understand its usage can be tricky. However, should you desire to take a short respite from Isshin and get some fun out of learning how to use a spectacularly powerful and versatile prosthetic, consider watching my complete guide on the Mist Raven, linked in the description. For now, I'll summarize how it's operated, for you to consider including it in your loadout. The Mist Raven is activated upon coming into contact with your opponent's attacks. In short, with the exception of grab attacks, it can be used in lieu of deflections, Mikiri counters, and head stomps. When you trigger this prosthetic right as an attack is about to land, the feathers absorb the damage of the attack, granting you teleportation powers and freeing you from any vitality or posture damage. When used in conjunction with your directional analog stick, you can teleport in any lateral direction you choose. It's especially advantageous if you opt to teleport behind your opponent. From here, with the Fang and Blade skill activated, you can follow up with either your singular attack button or combat arts, which flips you around to deal devastating onslaught upon your opponent's back. You can also choose not to attack, and instead use this opportunity to heal, buff, or hold block to regain your posture. Essentially, the Mist Raven grants you the ability and freedom to carve out your own healing and attack windows. It is therefore worth considering as a panic reflex. For example, in the face of perilous attacks that you're still learning to differentiate, or powerful moves that you fear at the last second you cannot run away from. The Mist Raven can also be used to deal with lightning attacks. You will be able to reverse lightning without taking chip damage, as you would when performing jump reversals. Each use of both the base version of the Mist Raven and its upgraded aged variant costs 2 emblems. The highest upgrade, the Great Feather Mist Raven, costs 3 emblems per use. Clear instructions on how to use the umbrella and the Mist Raven in response to various moves will be available to you when we get to the move list. 5. Combat Arts. Just as I've done so with Consumables, I also have comparison clips showing how soon you can respond by blocking after you've performed the recommended combat arts. They are accompanied with the same timer, displaying hundredths of a second. The 3 combat arts most popularly used for this fight are Ichimonji, Ichimonji Double, and High Monk. All of them are free of emblem usage. Let's have a look at their timing. Ichimonji, 2.26 seconds. Ichimonji Double, 3.58 seconds. High Monk with no follow-up, 3.04 seconds. High Monk with 1 follow-up, 3.46 seconds. High Monk with 2 follow-ups, 4.4 seconds. High Monk in full with 3 follow-ups. (5.36 seconds). The highest monk. (6.6 seconds). All 3 of these combat arts afford you great posture wreckage, especially when performed in mid-air right after a head stomp. Furthermore, in the case of Ichi and Ichi Double, you regain your own posture by performing these moves. They are also effective for interrupting some of the more problematic unblockable moves. However, be mindful, Isshin is notoriously quick to retaliate. It would be wise to develop a quick reflex to block immediately upon completing these combat arts, especially if you choose to perform their longer variants. Sometimes, Isshin can even interrupt you, therefore it would be practical to hold back and reserve the follow-ups only for when you're certain you have a wide window. The use of these combat arts, as well as when not to use them, will again be presented to you in the venerable move list, which is coming up right after 6. Game settings. Here are some modifications for you to try that can make the difference needed to help you win. To minimize locking off, especially when you're near obstacles such as boulders or the cliff face, consider cranking your camera speed all the way up to 10. It might take some getting used to, however, you'll have one less major problem to contend with. Since Sekiro's combat is so rhythmic, being able to utilize its sounds to recognize the tune for each move can be greatly beneficial. To get the most out of this, consider turning the music down to 3. I understand how the music can serve to fuel the immersiveness of fights. However, they can distract you from hearing the more important sound effects, which you can pull up to 8. Part 4. Geni's phase. At last, welcome to the move list. Let us begin straight away with preparing for the start of the fight. As long as you're standing on these planks, you can safely buff up. The moment you step towards the snowy ashen patch, the cutscene will be triggered, skipped, and the fight begins. You can also elect to buff up once the arena fades in. However, you only have a few seconds to do so, as Geni is adamant about getting the party started. No matter what you do, whether you approach Geni or choose to run away to get him to chase you, and chase you he will, his opening attack will always involve the Black Blade. 1. Single Black Blade. Geni's use of the Black Blade is the only real element that separates this fight from our previous rooftop encounter. If you can master this move, you have this phase down. Once Geni has closed the distance to begin his opening move, he raises his Black Mortal Blade up to your right, which then charges up with a flaming black energy. He swipes it sideways across to your left, leaving in its wake a massive black paintbrush streak that carries incredible forward range. Executing this move leaves him wide open. There are 8 viable ways to counter this move. 1. Circling and step dodging. To maneuver in this way around his attack, as soon as Geni's blade is drawn, start walking around him in a circle, stay glued to him, and ensure his sword arm or back are facing you. The moment he performs the swipe, consider taking 1 step dodge to the right, just in case it catches you. Here it is again in real time. 2. Last second step dodging or dashing. This is useful if you choose to make use of the attack windows during the wind-up and cooldown periods. The timing takes some adjusting to and requires both speed and accuracy. Run up to him so you'd be able to attack him twice, at most twice, as he's lifting his sword up to charge it. When the Black Blade is fully charged and about to make its sideways swipe, immediately step dodge or dash to your right, at an angle that forms a tight semicircle. You'll circumvent the move, and because his back is open to you, you can follow up with 2 or 3 slashes of your own. Be sure to tap your block button right after, as Geni will retaliate at this point. Here it is once more. Here is an example of a wrongly timed dodge, where I waited too long. 3. Sword deflection with divine confetti. Without confetti, defending the black blade with your sword results in vitality damage. Less when you perform a deflection, a lot more when it's a block, and a hefty amount when you get hit. Buffing Kusabimaru with confetti grants you the ability to deflect the black blade without taking damage. Blocking still takes some health off. To deflect, position yourself in front of him and keep a close eye on the tip of the black blade. Wait a full second and listen for the peak build-up as the sound indicates that the blade is fully charged. At this precise moment, tap your block button to deflect. In the same way as the previous methods of avoiding the blade, you can also attack him before and after he performs this move. For me, attacking him during his wind-up makes it tricky to time the sword deflection. Compared to circling or step dodging, he responds much quicker to your attacks after he's completed the move. If deflecting the black blade is your preferred method, take care to ensure that your confetti is still active. 4. Deflecting with the lilac umbrella. This method carries much less risk than sword deflecting, as imperfect timing still guards you against vitality damage. The timing to deflect is the same as a sword deflection, with the benefit of more lenient iframes. Upon immediate retraction of the umbrella, you're free to attack him 2 or 3 times with your sword. Or you can apply projected force. Once you've performed the umbrella deflection, you can immediately hit the attack button to trigger projected force. Here it is once more. Decide for yourself whether you choose to make 2 or 3 sword attacks or use the umbrella's projected force. Each has its pros and cons. Confetti buffs your sword and nothing else. However, 𝐷𝐼𝐶 buffs all your damage sources. And you will recall that projected force with the lilac and lotus umbrellas will dispel divine confetti. 5. Tanking with the lilac umbrella. If timing the deflection is tricky for you, you can simply hold out your umbrella and turtle shell it. The Lilac's anti-terror abilities also protects Wolf from the sundering might of the black blade. You won't take vitality damage, however, it's heavy on the posture build-up. 6. Using the Mist Raven. The timing for triggering the use of the Mist Raven is exactly the same as performing a deflection. Hit your prosthetic button right as the black blade is about to connect. Wolf will then throw out the bundle of feathers, which absorb the damage for you and allow you to teleport. You will not take any vitality or posture damage. You can push the directional analog stick at the same time in any lateral direction. You can choose to teleport through Geni. Then, if you have Fang and Blade unlocked, you can hit the attack button to return with a dashing sword swipe, or combat arts. Seven, creating distance to trigger the lunge thrust. If you want to avoid dealing with the black blade altogether, consider baiting him. Staying close triggers his black blade usage. Once he begins his wind-up animation, run hard to create a wide berth. When he's completed his move, this distance you've created will almost always trigger his lunge thrust, which you can easily receive with a Mikiri counter. Wait for the red kanji to appear. As it is fading, but still visible, hit forward on the directional analog stick, together with the dodge button, to perform the Mikiri counter. This combination of forward and dodge works without fault when used in conjunction with the signaling of the fading kanji. If by any chance you feel you can't run away fast enough, jump right as the black blade swipes forward, and you'll be able to jump over the black streaks. 8. Interruption. You can also bypass the black blade altogether by interrupting it with a variety of combat arts and prosthetics. You will succeed as long as you perform these moves during his wind-up animation. Take care to defend yourself by holding or tapping block immediately after executing these interruptions. Here are interruption methods you can consider. Ichimonji or Ichimonji double. High Monk with 2 follow-ups. Firecrackers. Any version of the axe. Any umbrella's projected force. 2. Double black blade. Here, Geni performs 2 swipes of the black blade. The first is the same sideways one from the single black blade, while the second is a vertical slash. You can apply all the same methods for countering the single black blade. 1. Circling and step dodging. For the first sideways swipe, the timing for circling and step dodging to your right is exactly the same. As he charges the black blade a second time, stand your ground momentarily and continue circling to the right, or take a step dodge before he makes his downward swipe. 2. Last second step dodging or dashing. You can attack him during the wind-ups of both slashes. For the first swipe, run up to him, attack at most twice, and then immediately dodge or dash to the right at an angulated semicircle. For the second swipe, you can attack twice. However, timing the dodge can be tricky, so I recommend only attacking once, before making that dodge or dash to the right. Sometimes it can appear really close. Revel in your key aptitude and take a moment to celebrate the game's wonderfully accurate hitboxes. 3. Sword deflection with divine confetti. Position yourself in front of him, and you'll be able to deflect both swipes more accurately. Both swipes require a full second to charge. Steel yourself and wait for the build-up of the charging sound to signal your deflection. As with the second method, you can attack him during his wind-ups and cooldowns. 2 attacks at most for the first swipe, 1 or none for the second, and 2 for when the move is finished. Immediately defend yourself against his retaliation by blocking or deflecting. 4. Deflecting with the lilac umbrella. Deflect and then deflect. Deflect and spin. The timing is the same as sword deflecting. You can choose to retract your umbrella after the first deflection and whip it out again to deflect the second swipe. Or you can keep the umbrella open after deflecting the first swipe and wait to spin it in order to deflect the second one. If you choose to unleash projected force right after deflecting the first swipe, you'll be able to cancel the second swipe. Cancelling the black blade with projected force works with any umbrella variant. 5. Tanking with the lilac umbrella. As shown, turtle shelling with the umbrella does run the risk of breaking your posture. Be sure to respond as quickly as possible by hitting your prosthetic button. Same as with the single black blade, you can use the Mist Raven, create distance, or interrupt the move entirely. 3. Slash kick combo with single or double black blade. It is guaranteed that every time you deflect or block the slash kick combo, it will always follow up with the black blade. He brings his sword up to your left, slices it down to your right, then spins for leverage to perform a roundhouse kick. Both the slash and the kick can be deflected. He then charges the black blade, which you can respond to via any of the methods recommended for the single or double black blade. Blocking the kick results in you getting slightly staggered, which can impede the running start you need to create distance if that's the method you choose. There's a chance you might get hit by the black streak. Be patient, wait to receive the lunge thrust with a Mikiri counter, and bide your time for a safer healing window. Sometimes, if you dodge the black blade and have thereby created some distance, should you remain behind him, he could turn around and surprise you with a single bow shot. Watch your opponent, don't focus so much on moving about, and always be on your guard. 4. Slash kick combo with retreating single bow shot. This is the same starting attack combo as the previous one, but with a different move ending depending on your response to the roundhouse kick. If you sidestep the kick, no matter how far you are, he will always spin around to catch you with a single bow shot. Watch his movements and be ready to deflect or block. 5. Single bow shot with single black blade. For this move, he'll make a forward motion of reaching for his bow. He then slides swiftly towards you as he fires a single shot. He then follows up immediately by charging the black blade, which you can respond to via the maneuvers recommended earlier. Note, when his bow shot is a reactionary move, meaning it's triggered by your attacks, you can see he's in the motion of hopping back while reaching for his bow. You can easily cancel this with a single sword slash. 6. Double bow shot with single or double black blade. He has two ways of starting this move. He will take a step back and go straight for his bow, rapid-firing 2 shots your way. He then follows up by charging the black blade and performing 1 or 2 swipes. Alternatively, he will start with sword strike variations, either a downward slash or 2 quick slashes, chaining fluidly with the aforementioned combo. Pay close attention to his hands and always block at the ready. Respond to the single or double black blade according to your preference. 7. Triple bow shot. He signals the start of this move by leaping back and firing an airborne bow shot. Upon landing, he lowers down slightly to fire another 2 in quick succession. 8. Single bow shot and rolling slash. This is one of the moves he performs to close the distance. He runs towards you, pauses to fire an arrow, then rolls forward and uses that momentum to bring forth a downward sword strike. 9. Advancing single slash and double slash combo. He rushes at you with his head lowered, then slices his blade in an upward motion, pausing before following up with 2 quick slashes. 10. Single cross slash and retreating single bow shot. He leans down to drive that force into a powerful sidelong sword slash, and then leaps back to fire an arrow in mid-air. 11. Flurry. He starts this move in two ways. He runs and pivots to your left, pauses to get into position, and bring his sword up high before unleashing a flurry of attacks, a combo consisting of 7 broken rhythm sword slashes. The last upward slash is slightly delayed, which, when encountered, always ends with a perilous thrust. Here is the move again for you to hear the rhythm of the flurry portion. It's difficult to directly counter this stream of attacks if you're aimlessly spam tapping the block button. Memorizing the musical tempo of the flurry can greatly improve your deflections. Upon encountering the final delayed upward sword slash, which means either deflecting, blocking, or getting hit by it, accurately performing the oncoming meekly counter requires you to wait 1 full second for Geni to pose and angle his blade downward in preparation for a thrust, while the red kanji appears to indicate the perilous nature of this attack. As the kanji is fading but still visible, hit the dodge button while holding forward on the directional analog stick. Wolf will rush forward at the precise key point to stomp on Geni's blade. He can also begin the flurry in another way, which calls for a different countering method. Instead of rushing to your left, he now performs a preparatory maneuver of 2 consecutive sword slashes. He then chains it with the rest of the 7-hit combo. First, pivoting around to your left and readying his blade up high, signaling the start of the actual sword flurry sequence, which in this case we're learning to evade. When you see him winding up to position his sword, run to create distance and continue running around him in a circle while he continues with his flurry animation. You can also choose to simply walk backwards. If you close in at the last moment to deflect the final upward slash, you'll be able to trigger his perilous thrust, and therefore deal more posture damage upon performing your meekly counter. This is a viable method if you have trouble learning the timing of the flurry, which can break your posture in an instant. If you do not encounter the final upward slash, he will not follow up with a perilous thrust. Note, Geni can cancel his own flurry. If you're moonwalking around Geni in a particular manner, as I did here, and manage to dodge the second slash from the preparatory maneuver, he won't perform the flurry at all. Another way for you to evade the flurry is by using the Mist Raven. Upon deflecting or blocking the preparatory double slash, wait for him to complete his wind-up animation, and then right as the first slash from the flurry is about to land, trigger your prosthetic button to unfurl the Mist Raven in the same timing as deflecting or blocking it. If you push forward on the directional analog stick, you can teleport through both him and the attack. You can then press your attack button, or the 2 needed for combat arts, to return with a Fang and Blade powered attack. You can see here that his flurry is a super armored combo, virtually impossible to interrupt once it's begun. You can also teleport through him and remain at a considerable distance. He won't pay you any mind until he's done dicking around. As his flurry sequence lasts quite a while, this is the perfect opportunity for you to heal, buff, or regain your composure. Be mindful of the fact that the distance you've created could trigger Geni to spin around and throw out a single bow shot at you. 12. Flurry with Black Blade. In this instance of evading the flurry, the 7th and final upward sword slash has now been replaced by the charged Black Blade. Respond to it accordingly. 13. Jump Slam and Sweep. This is a reactionary move, meaning he will only execute it in response to your provocation. In this instance, he is attacked 3 times before he's triggered to hunch down and launch himself into the air at a height so significant that we can see the bottoms of his feet. This gives him the impetus needed to execute his devastating downward sword slam, which comes after a full second delay. Upon encountering this jump slam, there comes the crucial moment that helps us differentiate one perilous attack from another. When what comes will be a perilous sweep, the red kanji appears instantly after the slam. Concurrently, Geni has his body twisted counterclockwise for momentum, blade lowered with its tip pointing to your left, the length of the blade glimmering visibly through the grass, indicating the oncoming perilous sweep attack. Wait for when the kanji is fading but still visible, then jump to execute a head stomp. 14. Jump slam and thrust. This is also a reactionary move. He performs the jump slam in the same way, except this time, after encountering it, followed by the immediate appearance of the red kanji, he now crouches so low that if you're dueling in the grass, his sword would likely be concealed. His deep crouch, as well as the fact that he's facing you, are the tells indicating his oncoming perilous thrust. Wait for the kanji to just about fade away, then hit forward and dodge to execute your mikiri counter. 15. Jump slam and uppercut. This is the third variation of the jump slam combo. The timing of the slam is the same as before. However, now there is no red kanji, signaling the certainty of a non-perilous sword attack in the form of a slicing uppercut, which can be deflected. Deflecting or blocking the uppercut will always trigger an exceptionally delayed perilous thrust, which you can receive with a mikiri counter to build extra posture damage. You can even get a hit in while he's airborne. Take care to quickly deflect his imminent sword slam. This finishing uppercut can also be jumped over, dodged, but at the cost of getting hit if not timed or angled correctly, as this move is meant to be deflected. To circumvent this and the key fact that there are 3 variations of the jump slam for you to deal with, consider using the Mist Raven. In this instance, the feathers serve as an excellent panic button to counter whatever comes after the slam. You can therefore also use this opportunity to get in an attack when you return with Fang and Blade. 16. Quick Thrust. This is a random perilous thrust that could happen at any juncture and is most dangerous when we're in the midst of attacking him. Fortunately, this move has a long wind-up, and as long as you pay attention to the oral and visual cues of the red kanji, view it as an aid rather than cause for panic, you'll be able to successfully execute your mikiri counter. 17. Lunge Thrust. If you've created distance, especially for the purpose of healing, the chances of him performing this move are almost 100%. As long as you keep a close eye on the fading kanji and use it as your indicator to punch forward and dodge as soon as you've popped a healing item, you will smoothly receive him with your mikiri counter, and be rewarded with an attack window straight after. There are instances, however, where the game rewards you with bosses failing spectacularly. Fun note, if you instead choose to deflect the thrust, easier with an umbrella, this is what happens. You'll trigger the next move on the list, which is 18. Rushdown Grab. This is Geni's third perilous move, which is triggered under 2 conditions pertaining to his lunge thrust. 1. When you get hit by it, most likely because you're healing, and 2. When you deflect it. This grab attack has an exceptionally long wind-up and should therefore give you plenty of time to respond. The tells appear right after the aforementioned conditions. The red kanji shows up while he leans down to rush towards you in a gliding motion. He also makes a considerable amount of noise to signal his key arrival. It's a devastating move if you do get caught by it. Wolf is lifted bodily and heaved upon the ground. He then receives Geni's blade, which plunges straight through his heart. It is most likely a killing blow, given there's a possibility you were already hit by the lunge thrust. Fortunately, given the ample wind-up, you can easily evade his grab via running or jumping. You can, however, deflect perilous grabs. It's feasible with your sword, however, the umbrella affords a much more lenient window. 19. Strafing Sweep. Whenever Geni lowers himself and starts strafing to your right, you can bet that he's about to throw out a perilous sweep. The running and the manner of the run are your tells. He twists around counterclockwise, bringing his sword back. Its tip will face your left. As the kanji is just about to fade away, double jump to land the head stomp. 20. Counter Sweep. This is a reactionary move. He only performs it when you're attacking him. Unlike the quick thrust, where his sword is so low that it can be concealed by the grass, his perilous sweeps always reveal themselves by the glimmer all along the length of his blade. The red kanji is paired with that gliding gleam. Those are your tells. As the kanji is fading, double jump to land the head stomp. 21. Counter Slash. This is him countering your attacks with a quick slash of his own. Count your hits. If he's already blocking and deflecting, hit him at most twice, and then immediately tap the block button to guard yourself against his counter slash, which comes in a downward motion. 22. Standard Sword Variations. Geni also has 5 non-perilous blockable sword moves. They are compulsory as opposed to reactionary, meaning they are not triggered by your actions and can happen at any time. You can guard yourself against them by holding your ground, watching his hands and his blade, and keeping your finger on the block trigger. Here are the moves. 1. Single Heavy Slam. 2. Double Heavy Slam. 3. Double Quick Slash. 4. 3-hit combo. 5. 4-hit combo. 23. Demos, Passive Play and the Wolf Train. Here is a demo of passively responding to a chain of Geni's compulsory moves. Here, on the other hand, is a demo of executing the Wolf Train. So what is the Wolf Train? Players who prefer a more assertive playstyle might enjoy this tactic, as it simplifies the fight by almost 50%, cancelling a large number of Geni's sword variations, his strafing and counter sweeps, and practically all of his bow moves. The Wolf Train is a term lovingly coined by players of aggressive prowess. It is so named to illustrate the back-and-forth, uninterrupted flow of attacking and deflecting, punctuated by the countering of unblockable or perilous moves. While the Wolf Train can be used against some bosses, notably Lady Buttfry and Roof Dad, most of the other bosses' movesets are super armored and therefore uninterruptible, unless contended with heavy, emblem-hungry methods. The fights are therefore largely dictated by the bosses themselves, where we're mostly just there for the ride, to counter whatever they throw at us and return with our own attacks whenever windows are open to us. It can therefore be quite an arduous and costly challenge to go against the grain and carve out our own path within their fight choreography. But that's for those bosses. Geni, on the other hand, is ridiculously susceptible to the wolf train. All three versions of him. He hits hard, but his passionately fervent attacks frequently leave him so open to the point where he's actually physically quite weak, especially in this fight where he's unarmored. It can be initially surprising how your simple sword swipes can cancel half of his moves. To successfully ride the wolf train, you need only pay attention to the sounds and visuals of him defending against your attacks. To put it simply, you can attack and keep on attacking as long as he's still blocking. The second he starts deflecting, stop attacking and immediately tap the block button to deflect. This is how the wolf train runs. While you can still hear the thudding of his blocks and the rending of his flesh, you are safe to continue wailing on him. Keep your eyes and ears open for his deflections, which, like yours, are a resonating clang accompanied by a large circular flare, for they signal his immediate retaliation. That's when you stop attacking and instead deflect. From here, it's likely he'll carry out combos ending with perilous moves, which, after successfully countered, opens up the attack window for you to again board the wolf train. It can be advantageous to go for a thrust right after head stomping or meekly countering. It ensures a fatality hit, amounting to about the same damage as 2 sword swipes. Simply hold down the attack button to perform a perilous thrust of your own. The general rhythm of Geni's wolf train runs along the lines of attack, attack, deflect. Immediately upon deflecting, pause to counter perilous ending combos. You may then resume the wolf train with attack, attack, deflect, or attack, 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 deflect. When Geni wants to be especially cooperative by constantly reaching for his bow, you'll be able to attack him for much longer durations. After all the game has put you through, it's rather satisfying to have an elegant punching bag for us to smack around. Enjoy him, because Isshin is an entirely different matter. Part 5. Isshin's first phase. Upon executing your death blow on Geni, the next cutscene is triggered, skipped, and Isshin is ready for you at a distance, slowly making his way towards you. He displays considerable clemency at the start of this phase, allowing you sufficient time to create comfortable distance for healing and buffing. Once the gap is closed, the fight begins. He tends to open the fight with moves that rush you. You can stand your ground and wait to receive them, or you can blast forth on the offensive by attacking with a simple sword swipe, which is enough to interrupt any of his opening moves. Just be sure to gauge your distance accurately. If you miss, you'll be punished harshly. We will begin with 1. Standard sword variations. These moves are non-perilous, blockable, and compulsory. There are 6 in total. 1. Hip jab. There's a chance he'll execute this move when you're either behind him or close to him on one side. He brings his sword hilt to his hip and jabs you with it swiftly. This move is thrown out somewhat rarely, which is why I only have one clip showing the attack being blocked. It's a reminder of the importance of staying on your guard and intimately befriending your block button. 2. Singular swipe. This one can come from right to left or left to right. 3. Measured double slash. This is a delayed combo of first one slash, pause, followed gracefully by a flipped second slash. 4. Rubato triple slash. This combo has a broken rhythm. 2 quick slashes, pause, then a finishing downward swipe. 5. Measured triple slash. This one, unlike the previous triple slash, is much slower and methodical, with equal pauses between each swipe. He used to perform this move much more often before the most recent patches. It's for this reason that out of 140 fights, I only have one clip of this move, where 2 out of the 3 sword swipes were blocked. 6. Double quick slash combo. This one is much faster paced than the measured double slash. It's a standalone combo when either the second swipe or both swipes are deflected perfectly. However, if you block the second swipe, it transforms into another combo that is no longer part of the standard sword variations. We'll get into it right after this recap. 2. Double slash combo and sweep. This is the first example showing how Isshin tries to punish you for inaccuracy. When you block the second swipe of the double quick slash combo, he will always follow up with a perilous sweep. It is never a thrust. On extremely rare occasions, he will withhold the sweep. Most of the time, upon your block of the second swipe, the red kanji will appear, along with Isshin making a movement of seeming to sheathe his sword. These are indications of the oncoming perilous sweep, which you double jump to perform the head stomp. It is therefore advantageous to develop the reflex to jump when you recognize the double quick slash combo and also know that you blocked the second swipe. 3. Spinning backslash. In this example, it's a 3-hit combo. Sometimes it can be 2 without the extra finisher. This is one fluid motion. He starts with his blade flipped to perform a downward backhand slash, the momentum of which spins him around in a full circle to perform a sidelong swipe. In this case, he then angles his blade and uses its circular flow to deal a finishing downward swipe. 4. Chase down slash. He favors this move at the start of his first phase, and also as punishment for healing. It begins with a forward gliding rush that closes considerable distance, immediately followed up with a sidelong swipe. When deflected, he usually adds an extra delayed downward slash. When blocked, as in these cases where Wolf was barely able to guard himself upon healing, he usually follows up with the spinning backslash. 5. Lateral dash triple slash combo. This move is usually triggered by distance. He runs to your right and upon reaching you, unleashes 3 slashes in rapid succession. He could follow this up swiftly with an added downward slash, or begin chaining it with combos that we'll be touching on momentarily. 6. Crossover slash. He prepares by opening up and fully facing you, legs apart. He leans low, raises his blade up high to your left, then drags it briskly across you as he dashes laterally to your right. Sometimes there's no follow-up. And sometimes, if you're still reasonably close, he'll throw out moves to catch you off guard, such as this next combo here. 7. Crossover slash with Ichimonji. This is the previous move followed by the potential of an Ichimonji. You'll know he's readying for it when he grasps his sword held with both hands, the blade pointing straight up. If you're far enough away and approach him with caution, he'll slowly lower his guard. If you're close enough, however, he will strike. In this particular combo, even upon a block, it'll only be a single Ichi, not a double. On the other hand, if your baller self successfully executes a deflection, he will immediately transition to Dragon Flash, which we will get to in a bit. 8. Crossover slash with spinning backslash. This happens occasionally when you close in on him swiftly upon countering his crossover slash. It chains fluidly into move number 3, the spinning backslash. He can even be prepped to deal out his Ichimonji, and from there, adroitly transition to the spinning backslash. 9. Crossover slash with AoE. He favors this combo when you're deeper within his first phase. As the AoE is a tricky move that can be countered in a variety of ways, and since it also appears in his second and third phases, we will discuss it now as a separate move. 10. AoE. In his first phase, Isshin's AoE, or area of effect, is always kicked off with the crossover slash. It's an unblockable, non-perilous attack, meaning you will take vitality damage if you block instead of deflect. Once Isshin rushes off from his crossover slash, he hunches down, sheathes his sword, and accumulates a convergence of wind powers that is absorbed within him. He then uses it to discharge a circular sword swipe of immense reach and might. Its velocity is so great that even upon a successful sword deflection, it results in massive knockback. If you're quick enough to chase him down after his crossover slash, you'll have enough time to attack him during his wind-up, at most 3 hits, though I personally feel safer with just 1 or 2. I've chosen 8 methods for you to counter this heavy attack. 1. Sword deflection. The timing for deflecting this move can be tricky. Here are the tells to help you familiarize with it. At the tail end of Isshin's wind-up animation, the swirling winds will become fully absorbed and no longer visible. In less than half a second from when the wind trails are completely gone, Isshin will begin reaching for the hilt of his sword. Pay close attention to the flick of his wrist. It is at this key moment that we trigger our deflection. It's a maneuver worth learning, as it does quite a number on Isshin's posture. The resultant knockback will require you to close in again, and therefore forego a slim attack window during his cooldown. 2. Umbrella deflection. The timing for this is exactly the same as a sword deflection. The only difference is you won't suffer any knockback and can therefore make use of the opportunity to attack him immediately afterwards, for example with projected force. 3. Umbrella blocking. The advantage of using the umbrella to counter this move is that even on an unsuccessful deflection, while you do get knocked back and your posture meter does climb alarmingly, at least you won't suffer any vitality damage. 4. Head stomping. The lengthy wind-up of this move enables you to counter it as if it were a perilous sweep. It's not as low-bearing as a sweep. Once his hand reaches the hilt, there's slim hope of you being able to clear the ensuing swipe should you choose to jump over it. To execute this head stomp, you must respond much earlier than if you were going for a deflection. Approach him as soon as he performs the crossover slash. Use the sound of the converging winds as your cue, and double jump right as that sound is about to end. Let's have a look at this recap. Launching yourself off of Isshin, you'll be airborne precisely when the wind trails have disappeared, and still airborne while Isshin goes for his hilt to perform the move, thereby granting you a successful evasion while also adding to his posture meter. If you are nervous about your timing, consider holding down your block button immediately upon landing the head stomp. With mid-air deflection activated, if you happen to jump ever so slightly late, you'll be able to deflect the sword swipe upon your descent. On that note, the descent from your head stomp presents an excellent attack window. You actually deal slightly more damage from the force of this downward motion. If you elect to use your basic sword attack, simply tap your attack button once you've executed the head stomp. I suggest attacking no more than twice, as Isshin recovers and retaliates swiftly. With mid-air combat arts activated, you can instead plunge down from your head stomp with a posture-wrecking combo. From the combat arts recommended earlier in Part 3, here are examples of their usage for this move. Head stomp with high monk follow-up. Head stomp with Ichimonji follow-up. Five, Mist Ravening. Just like the umbrella, the feathers can serve as an excellent panic trigger. You needn't be perfect. If you time the use of the Mist Raven ever so slightly too early or late, you'll still be granted its activation and teleportation, for you to use as an attack window with its follow-up, or for healing and buffing. 6. Evasion. If sword deflection feels too risky, or if you prefer to conserve your emblems, consider simply running away. The moment the wind trails begin to converge on him, dash hard, as fast and far away from him as possible. When you're clear of the range of the AoE, you'll have plenty of time to heal, buff, or regain your posture. 7. Forward dodging. This method is essentially the art of dodging iframes. The timing is exactly the same as deflecting. When you see the wrist flick, dodge towards him. It does not matter if you dodge right into him, or if you dodge to his side and end up behind him. While not crucial, it helps to stay on his right, as the circular swipe of the AoE flows in a right-to-left direction, and this will allow you to run underneath the attack. In the same approach as deflecting, you can either hold your ground and wait for the wrist flick, or you can attack him once or twice. 8. Interruption. Isshin's AoE in his first phase is so super armored that it's virtually impossible to interrupt. Even with high-powered maneuvers that can easily interrupt Geni's Black Blade and successfully interrupt the AoE in Isshin's second and third phases. Here are striking examples of spectacular failure. Attempt to interrupt with High Monk, with Ichimonji Double, with the loaded axe, and with the leaping flame spear. Through much experimentation, I learned that from the recommended loadout of tools and combat arts that we've gone over in Part 3, in his first phase, Isshin's AoE can only be interrupted by firecrackers and projected force via the umbrella. As long as you trigger your firecrackers while the wind trails animation is still going, you'll be able to successfully cut his sequence as well as get a vitality hit in. Take care to defend yourself as Isshin recovers and strikes back swiftly. To cancel his AoE with the umbrella right when he's charging the move, trigger your prosthetic button to open your umbrella. Then follow up immediately with your attack button to unleash projected force. Here it is again in real time. (11) Dragon Flash. Dragon Flash is a move that can start in two ways. In the initial quarter of his first phase, he prefers to conjure it out of nowhere without a move to trigger it. As you proceed deeper into his first phase, this becomes rare. Instead, Dragon Flash is only triggered when you accurately deflect either his Ichimonji or the second strike of his Ichimonji double. We will treat these scenarios as separate combos and discuss them in due course. First, we'll go over how this attack is carried out, and then we'll focus on the various ways you can counter Dragon Flash, regardless of how it is triggered. Dragon Flash is an unblockable, non-perilous attack. It comes in two stages. It starts with Isshin crouching, bringing up his arms and crossing them to gather wind powers onto his blade. He then transitions to two-handing his sword and uses one hand holding the blade to snap it downward. The full seamless motion is completed by him pivoting around and swinging his sword in a vertical 360-degree arc, unleashing a powerful shockwave in the form of a massive, upright, wind-formed semicircle that extends in a long, straight line of tremendous reach. After a short delay, the stretch of earth upon which this shockwave lands emits a residual trail of tremors in the form of vertical wind-formed spikes pulsating swiftly down that line. The first wave, the Dragon Flash itself, can be deflected. However, the ensuing shockwave, due to being emitted from the ground, must be evaded. Here are 6 methods for dealing with Dragon Flash. 1. Sword deflection. This is a great way to damage Isshin's posture. Keep a close eye on the positioning of his arms and his sword. Right when the wind trails are fully absorbed, his elbow will be at its highest, and the tip of his sword hilt pointing upward will be visible. This is when you tap your block button to deflect. It's an elastine move. The pressure takes a long time to build and is then loosed explosively. The impact will knock you back, and you'll have to nimbly move away to the left or right in order to avoid the ground-level shockwaves. 2. Umbrella deflection. The timing is exactly the same as a sword deflection, and just like using the umbrella to deflect the AoE, you will not get knocked back. Once you've unfurled the umbrella, keep it open, and immediately turtle shell over to one side in order to evade the residual shockwaves. Then, press your attack button to throw out projected force. It's imperative to do this quickly, as Isshin is cunning in his movements, and your prosthetic attack might not find its mark. It's tempting to attack right after deflecting the Dragon Flash. However, without proper maneuvering, the ground-level shockwaves are sure to punish you. Since Dragon Flash does not count as a projectile attack, your projected force will not be ranged. If you choose to activate it immediately after deflecting or blocking with the umbrella, but are too far away, the opportunity will unfortunately be wasted. 3. Umbrella blocking. As shown in the previous clip, you can also safely block the Dragon Flash without taking physical damage, but at the cost of heavy posture buildup, as well as significant knockback. 4. Mist Ravening. Timed in the same way as a block or a deflection, your feathers can grant you the power of tactical evasion as well as a valuable attack window with the use of Fang and Blade. 5. Evasion. If you start running hard at an arcing diagonal towards Isshin right as he begins his wind gathering, you'll be far away from both the Dragon Flash and the Aftershock, and in fact be able to reach him before his cooldown animation is complete, offering you a generous attack window. You can also use this opportunity to heal or buff, although be ready to defend yourself. 6. Interruption. It's not too tricky to defend yourself against Isshin's Dragon Flash, and if you evade it, you get a clear shot of Isshin's open back. However, if you're adamant about cancelling this move altogether, you can interrupt with firecrackers. 12. Built-up Ichimonji. Isshin's Ichimonji is a move that can branch off in 3 ways. Since 2 of them turn into separate moves, they will be treated as such in the move list. We'll now focus on the tells of his Ichi, and also how it remains as Ichi, instead of transforming into other moves based on the manner in which you counter it. Marking the start of this move is Isshin switching to two-handing his sword. He raises both arms all the way up, his elbows toward you, and the tip of his blade pointing all the way back. With tremendous force, he uses this built-up energy to smash his blade in a downward chop, the impetus of which causes him to slide shuffle a step forward. If you evade this move or get hit while evading it, he smoothly reverts back to one-handing his sword and adds a swift finisher in the form of a sidelong slice. If you remain behind him, he can throw in an additional follow-up, a backhand swipe that flips him around, ending with his blade extended straight out. There are 2 ways to evade this move while remaining close. 1. Step dodging. Wait for Isshin's wind-up and hold your ground. Right as the blade starts coming down, though timed earlier than if you were to deflect it, nimbly sidestep to your right to get behind him. Guard yourself against the backhand punisher by either readying your block trigger or taking a step to your left to evade it. 2. Moonwalking. In this instance, start circling him counterclockwise to your right while he still has his arms raised. Continue this moonwalking without pause in a tight U-turn, maintaining the same close distance. Right after he throws out his finisher, before the backhand punisher, is an opportune moment to safely strike, usually at most twice, before he backs off out of reach. Ultimately, most of the deflectable moves in this game are meant to be deflected rather than evaded. You're somewhat rolling a die of chance with your iframes if you evade, especially considering how effectively our opponents are able to track us with their attacks. It is for these reasons that I recommend learning to deflect his Ichi, or at least be ready for what happens when you block, which brings us to the next move. 13. Ichimonji double. Ichimonji double is triggered only under 2 conditions. 1. When you fail to deflect the singular Ichi, and 2. When you get hit by the singular Ichi. The second strike comes immediately without pause or need for wind-up. Therefore, if you mistimed that first Ichi, be ready to defend yourself against the next one that's sure to come. If you block both strikes of Isshin's Ichi double, the move ends. However, if you deflect the second strike, it turns into another combo, as it immediately triggers the onset of Dragon Flash. We'll get to that shortly. 14. Built-up Ichimonji and Dragon Flash. Earlier, we've seen Isshin's Ichimonji without being countered. When it's deflected, however, it will always result as a combo with Dragon Flash. We've talked about the tells of this move, so we'll go straight to timing its deflection, which is a little tricky only because it's so delayed. Isshin takes his sweet time preparing this move. While he slowly raises both arms, you can hit him twice, though I feel safer with just 1 hit. Besides, this is a good time for you to hold block to regain your posture. His arms and head are what you need to keep a close eye on. Before he strikes, for half a second, he'll pull his blade back even farther, his forearms now perpendicular to the ground. This moment is your cue, one where the snapping, elastic dynamism of his Ichimonji occurs, as the sudden speed of the strike contrasts alarmingly with its slow build-up. His head and elbows will begin to lower, and that's when you tap block to deflect. It might seem slightly too early, but due to the momentum of his attack, your deflection will find its mark. The deflection of his Ichi is a powerful impact that results in knockback for both of you. The transition is fluid. From here, Isshin will already be poised to begin the Dragon Flash sequence. Out of the methods recommended under Move 11, respond to Dragon Flash according to your preference and playstyle. If, during Isshin's Ichi build-up, you attack him right before he's about to strike, you'll be able to cancel the Dragon Flash. However, this is a risky maneuver. Fun fact: if you trigger your axe immediately, the iframes granted from the animation of the axe attack will render you immune to Isshin's Dragon Flash, allowing you to deal significant damage. 15. Ichimonji Double and Dragon Flash. From the examples shown, we can deduce that as long as any Ichimonji-styled strike is deflected, whether it's the singular one, or if it's the second strike triggered by mistiming the first, it is guaranteed that Dragon Flash will 100% follow up. In this first example, Wolf was too greedy getting his hits in during Isshin's wind-up, and was punished by a full-blown hit from the first Ichimonji. However, he was quick to recover, and managed to deflect the second strike, thereby triggering Dragon Flash. In the second example, Wolf mistimed his deflection and blocked the first Ichi, resulting in the second, which he managed to deflect. Dragon Flash ensues right on cue. Respond accordingly. 16. Ashina Cross. This is the third move in Isshin's first phase that is unblockable and non-perilous. You take damage upon inaccurate deflections. It also transforms into another move, depending on your positioning, which we'll get into momentarily. In order for Ashina Cross to occur naturally, you have to be at a mid-range distance. If you approach him during his wind-up, it changes into another move, covered later. This means if you choose to directly counter this move in its original form, you usually will not have an attack window, despite the lengthy wind-up, albeit with some risky exceptions. Isshin cues the start of Ashina Cross by lowering himself while sheathing his sword. A glimmer at the handguard indicates it is fully sheathed. He'll bend lower at the knee by a fraction, gathering momentum. Another smaller glimmer will appear, upon which he instantly charges forth, sliding towards you and unleashing a lightning-fast double impact in the form of a cross. The first swipe is sideways, from right to left, and then the second slices vertically downward. It is the second glimmer that you must keep a hawk's eye on. The wait for it requires a staggering amount of patience and steeled courage. You must hold your position and only respond instantly upon the appearance of that second glimmer. To deflect the cross swipes, hold your ground and tap your block button twice in rapid succession once you witness that second glimmer. Here is a clip of both swipes being blocked, so you can see their trails of movement without being obscured by the sparked aura of deflections. It is widely agreed that deflecting this move does bring with it a massive wave of gratification, and not only because it pounds on Isshin's posture. It's an especial thrill when he follows one Ashina Cross with another, or if you follow up with your own Ashina Cross. While knowing the cues for deflecting the cross does come in handy, it is still understandably a tricky move that requires absolute precision, for which we pay dearly without, as each paltry block costs us quite a hefty chunk of health, not to mention the devastation it wreaks when we miss outright. We will therefore go over options that are much lower in risk. 1. Umbrella Deflection. As mentioned earlier, deflecting with the umbrella affords you more lenient iframes than regular sword deflections. The timing is exactly the same. Right when the second sword glimmer appears, activate your prosthetic to unfurl the umbrella, thereby deflecting the first sidelong slash. Follow up immediately with a spin of the umbrella to deflect the second downward strike. Take note, if you opt out of spinning your umbrella in order to conserve an emblem, the second strike will be blocked, not deflected. You are still safe from physical damage, though at the cost of posture buildup. There is another way to deflect the cross with the umbrella. You can open up your umbrella when Isshin makes his preparatory move. Upon that second sword glimmer, you spin the umbrella once to deflect the cross swipes. Ultimately, deflecting with the umbrella can become costly, and is therefore only recommended at junctures where other reflexes fail. One note about using projected force here: it is a tempting attack opportunity. However, take caution, as his reactions are random and situational. 2. Umbrella tanking. This is a resort only to be used if 1. You're still learning the move and find yourself panicking at the sight of its preparatory wind-up, and 2. Your posture gauge is low. Under normal difficulty mode, turtle shelling unblockable, non-perilous moves will not cost your vitality. However, it does pack a wallop to your posture. If your posture concerns you, take care to immediately retract your umbrella and wait for a window for you to hold the block stance with your sword to regain your posture. If, on the other hand, you prefer to be offensive, consider throwing out projected force. 3. Head stomp. This is the same premise as head stomping his AoE. And because we're closing distance upon jumping towards him, it instantly triggers the transformation from Ashina Cross into another combo, one that involves a perilous sweep, which we are now able to clear in one effective stomp. To do this, we now focus on the first sword glimmer instead of the second, therefore the window is much shorter. You must also maintain adequate distance so as not to trigger the other move. When Isshin lowers himself to sheathe his sword, that first glimmer at the handguard appears almost instantly. You must now make your move. Jump towards him and instantly jump again to land the head stomp. While airborne, the red kanji will appear. However, do not be alarmed, as it signals a perilous sweep that you have already vaulted over. You are free to attack upon your descent. Not all your hits will find their mark, for Isshin has a tendency to cheat slide out of your follow-ups. 4. Evasion. Ashina Cross does cover a surprising bit of distance. However, its long wind-up affords us plenty of time to simply run backwards and create a significant gap comfortable enough to heal or buff while he performs this move. You can also perform an evasive maneuver that grants you an attack window. In a manner similar to evading Dragon Flash, you can run in a wide diagonal arc in order to get behind him. With this move, however, you are required to back off a bit first, maintain a distance that's out of mid-range, and be swift with your gradual angling in order to both bypass his tracking abilities as well as be able to close in behind him right as he performs the cross. With his back completely open to you, you will have a clear shot to throw in a couple of hits, no more than 3, but be ready to defend yourself against his swift counters. 5. Mist Ravening. Perhaps you find yourself backed up against a wall or the edge of the cliff, or perhaps you're still learning this move and the panic has yet to subside. The Mist Raven can therefore serve you well. It allows you to escape and also gives you a window for either returning with an attack or keeping your distance for healing and buffing. When you see the second sword glimmer, trigger the Mist Raven in conjunction with your directional analog stick, and you'll be able to teleport through the attack free of vitality damage and posture buildup. 6. Interruption. If you are adamant, there is one, and only one, viable way to interrupt Ashina Cross. Since its variant is triggered by proximity, your options are limited and basically narrowed down to firecrackers, specifically one that's powerful but not delayed. For example, Long Spark. It still necessitates learning to watch for the cues, namely the sword glimmer. Using this method allows you to rack up Isshin's posture. It also grants you an attack opportunity when you have Chasing Slice activated. Here are 2 examples of its usage. Here, firecrackers were thrown out when Wolf was close enough to trigger the other move, hence the emergence of the red kanji. Fortunately, the sparks are instantaneously effective and can successfully negate this variant move. Simply watch for the first glimmer of the sword as it's being sheathed, and trigger your prosthetics at that key moment, followed by a chained sword attack. This time, the range of long spark alone is able to get the job done, without triggering the variant move. The timing for this one is a little later than the previous example. The first sword glimmer has already occurred. Isshin lowers his stance in preparation for unleashing the cross, which is cut off when you trigger your prosthetics at that juncture, followed by a sword attack. 17. Ashina Cross Psych Sweep. This is what Isshin's regular Ashina Cross transforms into when triggered by proximity. It's one of his cunning means of punishing us when we're lured into the false assumption of an easy attack window. This two-hit combo starts much quicker than the cross, marked by the synchronization of us closing the distance, together with the sheathing of his sword. To deflect the first hit, we first watch the glimmer at the handguard, then take note of Isshin lowering his stance to gather momentum. At this point, we'll look at two examples which show how that first hit is triggered by proximity. In this instance, Isshin immediately strikes out from his lowered stance without any pause. What provoked it was our closeness. In this second instance, Isshin instead remains in that lowered stance for a moment before sliding forth to strike. This makes it trickier to time our deflection, so what we focus on now is the elbow of his sword arm. While his hand is at his scabbard, his elbow points down. The attack comes right upon the unsheathing of his sword, which is marked by the upward motion of his elbow. At this precise moment, tap block to deflect. You must remain alert, as the second hit, a perilous sweep, follows up immediately after. Its red kanji pops up even as the spark from the first deflection is dissipating, signaling our cue to jump twice in order to land the head stomp. You are free to attack upon your descent, at most twice, after which you must be ready to defend yourself. Here's a clip where the first hit was dodged. It's a tricky maneuver and therefore not recommended. The reason for showing this is so you can more clearly see the first strike, unobscured by the massive deflection spark. Swiftly unsheathing his sword while continuing to point the blade downward, he raises it high up, elbow over his head. This sudden, deliberate motion of sliding his blade out is what creates the first impact. From this first strike comes a structured pause, followed by a full bodily spin that powers the ensuing perilous sweep. Furthermore, it is not advisable to attack during his sheathing windup, for which he tolerates none of. There are not many options to counter this move, as it both happens so quickly and requires total precision. If you so much as block the first hit, the force of it will stagger you to where you will most likely miss the follow-up perilous sweep. If you happen to be caught in what's essentially a rock and a hard place, and are not confident in your abilities to directly counter this move, consider throwing out firecrackers as a last-second diversion. Interestingly, the axe and its follow-up sword attack can offer you some astonishing iframes, as well as make a significant dent to Isshin's health and posture. However, its timing is too tricky and unreliable. 18. Strafing Thrust. Always marking the start of this move is Isshin strafing to your right. He takes 3 speed walking steps in that direction, then repositions his sword, switching from holding it in one hand on your left to 2 hands on your right, pointing the blade downward with the hilt at his hip. The red kanji appears as he switches to two-handing, indicating the onset of a perilous thrust. As with any such attack, pay close attention to the kanji. As it is fading and is still barely visible, hit forward on your directional analog stick simultaneously with your dodge button to land the Mikiri counter. You now have a small attack window where you can hit him up to 3 times before he's triggered to perform other moves. You could also trade this attack window for healing or buffing, provided you create considerable distance after landing your Mikiri counter. While this method is tried and true, you could sometimes accidentally overshoot it. When you end up behind him in such a manner, there are times where he chooses to do nothing. However, he's usually quick to retaliate with a backhand punisher, virtually identical to the one that he performs should you choose to sidestep his built-up Ichimonji. Therefore, should you overshoot your Mikiri, take care to tap or hold block to defend yourself against his punisher. The reason you overshoot him is due to your closeness to him, and the fact that he walks in a quarter circle to your right before he thrusts. We are accustomed to using Mikiri against thrusts that come from directly in front of us, pushing our analog stick forward. However, Isshin, with his tricky ways, thrusts at us from our right. So in our well-formed habit, it is perilously easy for us to miss the Mikiri opportunity because we push our analog stick in the wrong direction. The method for guaranteeing the Mikiri every time is to walk backwards and slightly to your left when you see him begin to walk to your right. This will create a little distance between him and yourself. That little distance you create widens the area of Isshin's point of contact with you when he thrusts, making it much easier for the game to register your Mikiri attempt as moving towards him rather than in the wrong direction. It also makes it easier for you to see the direction from which his thrust is coming. You can also interrupt his perilous thrust by simply attacking him earlier at the start of this move. Here, after his Ashina cross was deflected, he proceeds to perform the telltale rightward strafing steps that indicate commencement of the strafing thrust. Before he could reposition his blade, he was attacked, causing him to block and deflect, thereby preventing his perilous thrust. Despite this, Mikiri counters have a great impact on Isshin's posture and are worth mastering. 19. Palm Strike and Thrust, or the Grope and Poke. The Grope and Poke is a reactionary move, meaning he will only perform it upon responding to your attacks. One of the best ways to identify this move is by rhythm as well as musical pitch. The Grope and Poke tends to come after you've attacked him with at least 2 regular sword hits. He blocks the first, then deflects the second. This results first in a metallic clang from the block that is duller yet higher pitched, followed by a clang from his deflection that is slightly lower in pitch but has a much more resonating quality. Also serving as tells are the positioning of his body as well as his sword and hands. Prior to going into the Grope and Poke, he turns his body completely sideways to your left, keeping his face intensely towards you, with his sword in both hands raised high and skyward, also on your left. He pauses here momentarily, then switches to one-handing, rotating the blade so that its tip now faces you. Maintaining that flow of movement, he lines up the tip of his blade with the palm of his now free hand, using it to support and guide the blade, which he now shoves sharply towards you in the form of a palm strike. The impact, whether blocked or deflected, causes him to briefly hold this forward offensive position, blade pointing directly at you. Meanwhile, the red kanji emerges, indicating the onset of a perilous thrust. Be mindful of the delay in this move, and use the kanji as your guide. As it is fading, though still barely visible, hit forward on your directional analog stick simultaneously with your dodge button to perform the Mikiri counter. Having successfully countered the thrust, you are now free to attack him 2 or 3 times, after which you must ready yourself for his key spontaneity. Part 6. Isshin's second and third phases. Upon performing the first of Isshin's 3 death blows, it is recommended that you promptly run to create a reasonable distance. He could remain stationary and begin his second phase from there. However, there is a chance, particularly if you run into obstacles and therefore have your back completely open to him, that he will rush at you with his chase down slash from phase 1. Disregard it and keep bolting until you're clear of his mid-range. The reason why it's preferable to stay away is because Isshin kickstarts this next phase with a non-damaging move that nonetheless can knock us off our feet. He raises a knee up to his chest, then slams it down, resulting in a powerful earth tremor. Shrouded in the resultant dust cloud, he bends down and with one hand lifts from the ground a magically conjured spear of immense size. He swings it triumphantly in a wide forward arc before bringing it to rest on his shoulder to our left. Having avoided the earth-shattering impact, we can use this lenient window to heal or buff. If you time your dash back to him right as he lifts his spear, you can afford to be more aggressive and attack him with at most 3 hits while he completes his spear-swinging animation. It does not, however, pay to be greedy. Go for the maximum hits only if you're fully confident, otherwise stick to 1 or 2. You'll get plenty more opportunities later. There are some rather stylish maneuvers that can be synchronized with Isshin's preparatory movements. For example, forward dodging the foot stomp and deflecting the spear as it's being swiped up. This is largely for flair, as that single deflection, as well as its resultant knockback, contribute statistically nothing compared to simply attacking him. Moreover, if you choose to forward dodge the foot stomp, you'll likely have to sacrifice the opportunity to heal or buff. It's also rather tricky to time. The fight gets realer here now that you have sword, spear, and a concealed firearm to contend with. There are a total of 65 move variations and combos shared between phases 2 and 3. The majority of those, more than half, rarely occur, as they are chained virtually with creative randomness from the more important baseline moves that we will be prioritizing. These moves of rare occurrence will therefore not include detailed analyses. They will be marked as ones of minor attribute and simply be shown their number and name, then once in real time and once decelerated. Here is the general rule of thumb that will aid your progression in this phase. All the ways the sword, spear, and gun can be combined might give rise to the strain of having a lot to remember. However, as long as you hold your ground, have a general idea of what to expect, and understand that the core of this phase centers simply on your ability to differentiate thrusts from sweeps, you'll do fine. With that, let us begin with 1. Spear Thrust. The way Isshin's spear thrust starts is completely different from his spear sweep. However, it can take time to perceive this in the midst of combat, so let's remove the confusion once and for all. The thrust always comes from high to low on your right. He turns sideways to your right for leverage. He then lifts the spear up high above his shoulder and uses its weight to drive the spear tip in a wide, clockwise semicircle down towards you. While it may not look like it from the slowed footage, the timing of utilizing the fading kanji technique for Mikiri countering Isshin's spear thrust is exactly the same as with any other perilous thrust in the game. Keep a close eye on the red kanji. Right as it's about to fade away, hit forward on your directional analog stick simultaneously with your dodge button to perform the Mikiri counter. You are free to hit him 2, maybe 3 times right after. The first will always be a full-on vitality hit. Take note, it is not common for Isshin to perform a standalone spear thrust. It is almost always the finisher to a number of combos. You'll recognize it for what it is as long as you can recall that it always comes down on your right. 2. Spear thrust with hook grab. The only times I ever got footage of Isshin performing the hook grab is when he used his spear thrust as a finisher for his lengthier combos. We'll look at these combos later. For now, let's focus on the thrust and its aggressive retaliatory counter, the hook grab, for when we maneuver to Isshin's open back. Sometimes we may trigger our Mikiri a fraction too soon, causing us to dash past our opponent. When this occurs with Isshin's spear thrust, because the spearhead did not find its mark, Isshin will complete the action of retracting his spear sharply in order to reposition it on his shoulder. This clip shows that animation in full without any interaction with the spear, because in this case, when we dashed past, we ended up on the opposite side of the spear-wielding arm. Should we end up on the spear side, though, that massive curved double blade at the base of the spearhead that essentially serves as a hook will almost certainly gravitate towards us with savage precision. If you do overshoot your Mikiri, be especially on your guard to shield yourself from his hook. Since it happens quite quickly, a quick block will very likely score a deflection. However, there are times where you may not be so fortunate. Still, you have the ability to defend yourself from ensuing aftermaths. In this clip, Wolf got hooked. You can see how that attack pulls us towards Isshin, giving him the opportunity to lash out with 2 additional sword hits. The hook grab only staggers momentarily. As long as you stay sharp and remember that the block button is your greatest ally, you'll be able to recover instantly and guard yourself against any punitive follow-ups. 3. Spear Sweep. As mentioned prior, this move has a completely different tell compared to his spear thrust. This time, he remains facing you. The tip of his spear will be swung counterclockwise behind him, at first pointing to your right, proceeding to your left. He continues this motion, now lowering his spear to the ground, still directed to your left. Then commences with the sweep, spear tip swiping counterclockwise along the ground towards your right. The biggest indication of this move is that no matter where you two are standing, whether in the grass, on the dirt path, or on the bridge, the sweeping spear tip will always kick up an enormous cloud of dust accompanied by a flurry of silver grass. Upon the initial swinging of the spear behind his back, the red kanji will appear. It does not begin to fade until after the kicked-up cloud of dust and grass is at such a height that it wholly obscures Isshin within. Right as the kanji is fading, you may make your move. Jump towards him, then swiftly double jump to land the head stomp. A follow-up attack is not shown in this clip, as it is imperative to see how quickly Isshin retaliates without interference from our end. That said, there are a number of methods to chain attacks with your head stomp. Because Isshin's spear sweep is never a standalone move, but is instead always a combo finisher, these follow-up attacks will be recommended when we get to these specific combos. For now, it is crucial to master the differentiation of spear thrusts from spear sweeps. 4. Tracking Gunshot Barrage. This move, involving the use of Isshin's concealed firearm, almost always occurs after sword or spear moves, or combinations of both. When chained one after the other, it results in a number of combos that we will cover later. For now, we will examine just this move on its own, its tells and attack patterns, as well as the recommended methods for countering it. Isshin uses sword and spear moves to either create distance or to catch you off guard before electing to use his firearm. He reaches into his clothing, pulls out the concealed firearm, and extends that arm, pointing the pistol directly at you. He then lets off a barrage of 4 rapid-fire shots that track you should you choose to evade them. He tends to finish up with a perilous move. The 4th shot is ever so slightly delayed and is therefore extremely difficult to deflect. It is for this reason that the most commonly preferred methods for dealing with this tracking barrage are to simply avoid countering it directly. These are 1. The runaround. Upon Isshin's landing from performing his distancing move, when you see him position himself sideways and reach into his clothing, take heed of your surroundings and immediately start running in a wide arc, pushing your directional analog stick hard to the left or right, depending on environmental factors such as potential hindrance from rocks or trees or the looming edge of the cliff. 2. Using coverage. The boulders strewn throughout the arena can be used to shield you from Isshin's gunfire. If you happen to be around them, you can consider using this opportunity to heal or buff. Be mindful that you're not right up close to the boulder, or you might get hooked by Isshin's spear thrust, which has the ability to pierce through physical barriers. 3. Umbrella deflection. The umbrella's gracious iframes will ensure you perfect deflections every time. You need only spend 2 emblems to deflect all 4 gunshots. Since these are projectiles that your umbrella has guarded against, you can throw projected force back at Isshin from range. However, even when you do so quickly and without delay, this often comes at the cost of you getting hit. It can cancel his usual perilous follow-up, but he will then likely initiate a new attack that will hit you before your projected force animation ends. 4. Mist Raven. The timing for activating your feathers is exactly the same as deflecting the gunshots with your umbrella. Wait for Isshin to fully extend his gun-wielding arm, then trigger Mist Raven along with any lateral direction on your analog stick. You will immediately teleport through the first 2 shots. This happens so fast that the 3rd and 4th shots will not be able to track you. 5. Forward dodging the 4th bullet. This is a method utilizing iframes. Upon deflecting the first 2 shots, you automatically deflect the 3rd one because it arrives so quickly. This is because while your sword is held up to deflect the 2nd bullet, you're already receiving the 3rd. The moment you see and hear the 3rd deflection, dash forward towards Isshin. Wolf's lowered stance in preparation for running will cause the 4th bullet to fly right over you. As the tracking gunshot barrage is often followed up with perilous attacks, be prepared to counter either a spear thrust or sweep. 5. Rushing gunshot barrage. This is a standalone move, as in it's not chained after another attack. When Isshin creates distance from you, whether by rushing off on his own, or when you choose to evade his big heavy attacks, or when you try to heal from a distance, there's a chance he'll come charging at you, literally gun blazing. This, like the tracking gunshot barrage, also consists of 4 shots. However, the pattern for this one is slightly easier to deflect. The tell for this move happens much quicker than the other barrage. Also, the action of him reaching into his clothing for his concealed firearm is not so easily visible, especially from a distance. Whenever Isshin is outside of mid-range distance, pay special attention to his movements. When you see him rushing at you with his body angled to your right side, arm on the left fully extended and pointing straight at you, be ready to defend yourself against the ensuing gunfire. The best ways to counter this move, in addition to straight sword deflecting, are the same as the methods recommended for the tracking gunshot barrage, with the exception of the first, the runaround, as this version of his barrage happens far too quickly for you to be able to reliably evade it. Note, the timing for forward dodging the 4th shot is the same as for the tracking gunshot barrage. Deflect the first 2 shots, thereby automatically deflecting the 3rd. Then, immediately dash forward to evade the 4th shot. 6. Concealed single gunshot. This move never occurs on its own. It can follow any attack that causes Isshin to arrive at a lowered position, body facing to your left. Watch what he does with his spear. The major tell for his concealed single gunshot is that no matter what move he has done prior, he uses his hand that's away from you, the one that's obscured, to grab the spear, flip it swiftly behind him, and tuck it under his arm. The spear tip now points to your right. At the same time, with the arm that's exposed to you, he reaches into his clothing to bring out his gun. This action might be largely obscured if you remain, as you should, close to him. The simultaneousness of his two hands performing two totally separate moves is so smooth and seamless that by the time his spear is securely tucked, that gunshot will announce itself in the form of a monumental bang. Its power is so great that even upon a successful deflection, you will be knocked back. When blocked, it will stagger you and could very well break your guard. There is no alternative viable method to counter this move other than simply tapping block to deflect or guard. Noticing the spear tucking will give you a massive upper hand. Whether you deflect, block, or get hit by this single gunshot, he almost always follows up with a perilous sweep. The chaining of these two moves is a part of a number of combos, which we will be examining as we go down the line. If, however, you counter quickly enough, you can cancel the single gunshot. Upon deflecting the previous sword or spear attack, simply deliver a regular sword swipe to interrupt Isshin in the motion of reaching for his firearm. 7. Crossover Advance. While this can be a standalone move, it is one that's usually chained with another sword attack. It's used to create distance from where he can launch a variety of heavy attacks. It's one of the few moves where Isshin's spear, now perched on his shoulder, is shown so visibly in its resting state. This is due to the extreme angle which Isshin adopts as he twists his body counterclockwise to your right, using it almost as a corkscrew action in preparation for this attack. When ready to strike, Isshin will first rise up high, with his elbow closest to you, cocked and elevated. He then swoops down low to your left, in a swift and sudden manner that juxtaposes the balletic build-up. What follows is the hard smack of his sword, dragging it swiftly against you as he sashays off to your left. From here, he breaks into a run, which gives him a head start to perform a number of long-range moves. The best thing to keep an eye out for in this move is his spear tip. When it's pointing as far to your right as it can go, be ready to deflect. 8. Crossover Advance with Gunshot Barrage. This is an example of how Isshin uses one move to create distance, then seamlessly follows up with a ranged attack, such as this rushing gunshot barrage that we had covered earlier. We will later be covering combos that involve the use of heavy attacks, and many of these combos begin with the crossover advance. 9. Lateral Spear Swipe. This is a move that appears in a number of combos. It is rarely a standalone move. The best way to counter it is to simply deflect or guard against it with your sword. With his spear held one-handed on your right, he swipes it clockwise in a forward semicircle, ending the move with highly disciplined form, positioning his spear laterally, its tip to your left. 10. 360 Spear Strike. This is not a standalone move. It always appears within combos. With ease and grace, Isshin travels to your left in springy hops, rotating in a full circle as he does so. His spear thereby follows this rotation to form a 360-degree swipe. It strikes right before it completes its turn, ending in a lateral position, fully extended and pointing to your left. Pay close attention to the shaft of the spear. When it has almost completed its rotation and is swiftly approaching you at an angle, be ready to deflect or block the ensuing strike. 11. Reverse Scissor. This is never a standalone move. It always appears as the second and third move within combos, with more to follow. He starts this one with his dual-wielding arms completely crossed, his weapons therefore directly opposite one another, spear tip to the left, blade to the right. He then uncrosses them, and in doing so strikes these weapons laterally against you. The action of reversing this scissor causes Isshin to lean forward to your right in a crouch in order to maintain balance, his arms now wide apart. From here, there are always spear or sword follow-ups. When his sword and spear are angled in a V, be ready to deflect. 12. Reverse Scissor with Spear Thrust. This combo and the next are examples of the reverse scissor combined with moves that we have covered in this phase. Respond by deflecting or guarding the first strike, then Mikiri counter. 13. Reverse scissor with lateral spear swipe and spear thrust. 14. Flip spin combo with spear thrust. 'This is a move usually triggered at mid-range. He takes one lunging step towards you, stabs the butt end of his spear into the ground for balance, and commences what's essentially a 360-degree whirlwind attack. The first strike is from his sword, slicing laterally across. As he completes his rotation and flips back to face us, he swipes at us with his spear in a full circular spin, a move which ends with his spear hoisted high above his shoulder, giving him the perfect opportunity and leverage to follow up with a downward stabbing perilous thrust. The first deflection against the sword is timed right as Isshin is leaning hard into his spear towards your right. Watch the spear tip and its circular path. When it's angled down to your left, about to reach you, be ready to deflect or guard against it. For the perilous thrust, watch the red kanji. As it's about to fade, simultaneously hit forward on your directional analog stick and dodge to perform your Mikiri counter. 15. Probing bitch slap. This is a singular sword attack that's often chained with a variety of combos. It can also be a standalone move. His spear rests on one shoulder, held in place by one arm. His sword arm, which is on your left, raises its blade to a high diagonal towards your right, then smacks it down hard across the front. The blade ends on your left. He favors using this elegant maneuver to punish us. For example here, when High Monk was used against him at a most inopportune time. 16. Probing bitch slap and then bitch slap. Every time you block, get hit by, or manage to dodge the probing bitch slap, he will always follow up with a move or a combo. In this case, it's another bitch slap in immediate succession, this time slicing from left to right. Isshin's sword arm serves as a good indicator. Focus on the elbow to help with timing your deflections. 17. Probing bitch slap up-down combo. In these instances, the probing bitch slap was triggered by Wolf's own attacks. Upon blocking the bitch slap, we now face Isshin's swift retaliation in the form of an up and down sword combo, specifically an uppercut followed by a forceful downward slice. He ends this combo with a crossover advance. Watch the blade to help with timing your deflections. 18. Probing bitch slap one-handed Ichi. This time, blocking the bitch slap triggers Isshin's Ichimonji, now performed with one hand instead of two-handed as in his first phase. From the ending position of the bitch slap, he stands up tall and straight, sword hoisted high overhead in unmistakable preparation for the ensuing Ichimonji. The timing for deflection is the same as his first phase Ichi. Watch his raised elbow. As soon as it begins to lower, be ready to deflect or guard against it. As this Ichi is executed with only one hand, there is no need to contend with Dragon Flash upon successful deflections. The one-handed Ichi can also be triggered upon getting hit by or dodging the probing bitch slap. In this example, Wolf misdravens through Isshin's tracking gunshot barrage, ending up behind him. This triggers Isshin to perform the probing bitch slap, which fails to find its mark due to how long it takes for Isshin to recover his locking onto you. He then makes preparation for the one-handed Ichi, rotating to face you during the long wind-up. The Ichi, however, was blocked, which triggered a second Ichi strike, thereby resulting in a circumstantial execution of Ichimonji double. 19. Probing bitch slap uppercut. In this bitch slap variation, Isshin finally whips out his spear. The corkscrew momentum from winding up for the bitch slap is now fully unleashed as the completion of the bitch slap flows seamlessly into a powerful uppercut swipe from his spear. When the shaft of the spear is angled such that it's almost parallel with the side of Wolf's body, prepare to deflect by tapping block. This impact from the spear is heavy enough to stagger should you land a block. Getting hit by it full force will throw you asunder. 20. Probing bitch slap uppercut windmill with spear thrust. This combo builds upon the previous one with the addition of 2 more spear moves. After the uppercut, Isshin takes a second to regain his composure, his spear still held aloft. He then displays great skill and prowess, driving the spear in 2 massive full-circle windmill rotations to produce 2 impacts. Upon the last twirl of the spear, now held aloft above his shoulder, the red kanji appears, announcing the arrival of a perilous thrust. Wait till the kanji is just about to fade completely, then hit forward and dodge to perform your Mikiri counter. Should you get hit by the uppercut, you can cleanly evade the windmill via your safety roll. The Mikiri counter is still yours to freely land for some precious posture build-up. 21. Delayed sword and spear. This is a reactionary combo, meaning it only occurs when Isshin is provoked. It comes first from a sword move that is either blocked or evaded, followed by a spear strike. Upon blocking your attacks, at most 2, Isshin rebukes by first slicing his sword counterclockwise, rotating his body to your right from the force of that attack. He then takes his spear, which was resting on his shoulder, and swipes it clockwise in a bold crescent, extending straight out to your left upon impact. The hit itself is very much delayed, and therefore can make the timing of deflection rather tricky. 22. Delayed sword and spear with spear thrust. At the end of the combo we previously covered, Isshin allows the weight of his spear to assist in pivoting him around, which brings his spear high up over his shoulder, spear tip pointing down to your right, prime indicators of his perilous thrust. As the red kanji is fading, hit forward and dodge to perform your Mikiri counter. 23. Delayed sword and spear with single gunshot. 24. Delayed sword and spear with single gunshot and spear sweep. This combo is likely triggered by distance. If you happen to be in range upon countering or getting hit by his single gunshot, he might follow up with a perilous spear sweep. Respond as previously covered. As the kanji is fading, jump towards him, and once you're above him, immediately double jump to land the head stomp. 25. Spear slam. This is rarely a standalone move. It's oftentimes the opening attack to a large number of combos, 15 to be exact. Combos which consist of moves that were all previously covered. From his spear's initial resting state on his shoulder, Isshin uses the same hand that was steadying it, on your right, to hoist his spear up high, with the spearhead angled down to your left. The effort to lift the spear up is so immense, its weight causes Isshin to lean heavily to your left side and raise his leg up high for balance. The spear comes arcing down in a forceful slam, bringing Isshin down to a left-facing crouch, impacts, and ends in a horizontally extended position, pointing to your left. To time the deflection, wait for the spear to be swung over Isshin's head. Be ready to tap block at this point, as the swing of the spear picks up speed upon passing the highest point. When the spear slam is blocked rather than deflected, Isshin always follows up with a rapid 2-hit sword attack, so fast it's deemed the double tap, as it requires exactly that reflex on the block button to deflect both hits. It's a reminder to guard yourself immediately following your own inaccuracies. 26. Spear Slam with single gunshot. As mentioned earlier regarding the single gunshot, it always follows up after attacks that render Isshin momentarily crouched, with his spear fully extended to your left. When Isshin tucks away his spear, be ready to deflect the gunshot. You can, as covered in move number 6, cancel the single gunshot. Upon deflecting the spear slam, simply deliver a regular sword swipe to interrupt Isshin in the motion of reaching for his firearm. 27. Spear Slam with single gunshot and sweep. Sword deflecting the single gunshot will always result in massive knockback, putting you within prime reach of Isshin's spear as he performs his perilous sweep. Thrust attacks virtually never happen after the single concealed shot. Therefore, when you see the red kanji that appears right as you are staggered from the gunshot, you needn't deliberate. Jump towards him as soon as you're able to, and double jump to land the head stomp. Attack 2 or 3 times as you descend. Interrupting the gunshot by attacking with a single sword swipe upon deflecting the slam will also cancel the sweep. 28. Spear Slam with lateral punisher. This is a move that occurs upon blocking the spear slam. It's therefore considered a punisher in that it's triggered by miscalculated timing. It's such a heavy attack that should you be posture broken by the initial slam, the resulting punisher could very well kill you. Right after blocking the spear slam, Isshin does give you warning of the oncoming attack, with his sword raised high to your left in preparation to slice laterally across you with blinding speed. Tap your block button as soon as you see his sword begin to lower. In general, be ready to guard yourself immediately should your counters result in blocks. 29. Spear Slam with thrust. From the ending stance of the slam, Isshin uses the weight of his spear to flip himself around, thus providing the momentum as well as prime positioning to perform a perilous thrust from high over his shoulder downward to your right. Wait for the kanji to just about fade, then hit forward and dodge to land your mikiri counter. 30. Spear Slam with reverse scissor and lateral swipe. 31. Spear Slam with reverse scissor and gunshot barrage. 32. Spear Slam with reverse scissor and spear thrust. 'Here's an example of overshooting the mikiri, though not on the spear side, so there's no hook grab to contend with. 33. Spear Slam with reverse scissor, lateral spear swipe, and spear thrust. 34. Spear Slam with 360 spear strike. 35. Spear Slam with 360 spear strike and spear thrust. 36. Spear Slam with 360 spear strike, reverse scissor, and spear thrust. 37. Spear Slam with 360 spear strike and single gunshot. 'In these examples, when the 360 spear strike is blocked, it triggers the single gunshot. However, it can also occur upon deflections, as shown in the next move on the list, which is a variation of this one. This is one of Isshin's punishing maneuvers. Blocking a spear attack usually results in a stagger. It's an optimum window for firing a powerful single shot. 38. Spear Slam with 360 Spear Strike, Single Gunshot, and Spear Sweep. As mentioned in the previous move variation, the single gunshot can come after deflecting the 360 Spear Strike. The single gunshot and the perilous spear sweep are quite often part and parcel. In other words, every time you encounter the single gunshot, be ready to perform a head stomp for the oncoming sweep. 39. Spear Slam with 360 Spear Strike, Reverse Scissor, and Gunshot Barrage. 40. Spear Slam Super Combo. 41. Leaping Spear Slam. This is an establishing move that kicks off a number of combos, 13 of them, all containing moves previously covered, with the exception of one. It's a move that Isshin uses to 1. Close distance, usually starting with a crossover advance, and 2. Punish you for healing or buffing. There are two ways to respond to this move. Let's start with 1. Sword Deflection. There's a delayed rhythm to this move. Isshin comes at you from a distance, flying through the air with one leg up and spear held aloft. Timing the deflection requires gumption and patience. Isshin will be literally suspended right on top of you, the bottoms of his feet now visible, spear still high overhead. You must wait till just after this key point, when he starts making his swift descent, to trigger your deflection. 2. Dodging. This is the generally favored method, as it offers you a window for attacking or healing and buffing. There's a 50-50 chance that he'll respond to your dodge in a retaliatory manner, as his AI keys intuitively to your positioning, especially when his back is exposed to you. Since there is a chance he'll defend himself following your dodge, this will be listed as a separate move variation, which will be covered next. For now, we will focus only on the instances where it's definitely safe for you to attack or heal. Compared to sword deflecting, dodging this move is performed slightly earlier. When Isshin is right on top of you, wait till the last possible moment just before he descends. At that point, you run and push your directional analog stick in a tight forward U-turn, ending up behind him. There are signs that indicate you are clear to attack or heal. 1. Upon landing, he pauses long enough to expose his back and arm beneath his clothing. 2. He leaves his spear resting momentarily on the ground, then lifts it back up at a somewhat leisurely pace. If you're especially aggressive, you can even attack him while he's airborne. For your regular sword attacks, limit them to 2 hits, then immediately guard against his counterattacks. Despite the temptation, it's generally not safe to throw out combat arts at this juncture. Here are examples of attacking, healing, and buffing after performing the dodge and making sure the coast is clear. Popping the gourd. Popping a pellet. Popping Gorkan. Tantoing. Holding block to recover your posture. And when you're ready, venture beyond the recommended loadout and go for style points, such as attacking with the Leaping Flame Spear, or playing with oil, fire, and teleportation. '42. Leaping Spear Slam with Double Tap Punisher. The Double Tap Punisher is an obscenely rapid 2-hit sword attack. Isshin can immediately perform this move upon 3 scenarios with the Leaping Spear Slam. Every time you block instead of deflect, every time you create distance to evade it, and sometimes when you dodge around it. When you block the Leaping Spear Slam, Isshin is no longer staggered as he would be when his attack is deflected. Instead, he continues to rush forth, swiftly repositioning his spear to rest on one shoulder while simultaneously lashing out with the double tap. When you back up in order to evade the Leaping Spear Slam, Isshin will always rush forth, covering a massive distance to reach you and unleash the double tap. To completely avoid both the slam and the taps, you must continue running until you're outside of mid-range. When you dodge around the Leaping Spear Slam, there is a 50-50 chance that upon landing, Isshin will immediately spin around to execute this double tap. You might be able to defend yourself fast enough should you decide to attack his open back right away. However, the risks are too high. It is therefore much more prudent to wait for the signs of a safe window, rather than immediately healing upon dodging his Leaping Spear Slam. You can, however, opt to perform one sequence of High Monk right after dodging the Leaping Spear Slam, without hesitation. You will therefore be safely airborne and out of the range of his double tap. 43. Leaping Spear Slam with Single Gunshot. Alternatively, here's the Leaping Spear Slam with the single gunshot interrupted with a single sword swipe. 44. Leaping Spear Slam with single gunshot and spear sweep. Cancelling the gunshot will also cancel the sweep. 45. Leaping Spear Slam with 360 Spear Strike, Single Gunshot, and Spear Thrust. The chance of a perilous thrust following a single gunshot is so slim that I was only ever able to capture it once out of countless attempts during a live stream. A massive thank you to 𝐷 for hamming this clip, as it would have been impossible to locate otherwise. So, please be aware that while it is highly unlikely you'll come across this move, it could still catch you by surprise. Therefore, try to keep a watchful eye on his spear arm.
Oh! I didn't see that it was a thrust. Holy shit. I gotta be mindful of that.
46. Leaping Spear Slam with Single Gunshot and Spear Slam. '47. Leaping Spear Slam with Gunshot Barrage and Leaping Spear Slam. If you attack quickly enough, there's a chance you can interrupt the gunshot barrage. 48. Leaping Spear Slam with Spear Thrust. '49. Leaping Spear Slam with Reverse Scissor and Spear Thrust. The cooldown period upon landing a Mikiri counter does give you enough time to throw out a combat art, for example, single Ichimonji. 50. Leaping Spear Slam with Reverse Scissor and Gunshot Barrage. 51. Leaping spear slam with reverse scissor, lateral spear swipe, and spear thrust. 52. Leaping spear slam with 360 spear strike. 53. Leaping spear slam with 360 spear strike and single gunshot. 54. Leaping spear slam super combo. 55. Jump back spear swipe. 'We briefly touched upon this move when we examined move number 4, the tracking gunshot barrage, which has a very high chance of chaining after the jump back spear swipe. In fact, because that follow-up is so common, it's recommended to develop the immediate reflex to either counter or evade the possible ensuing gunfire. There are, however, times where it can be either a standalone move with no follow-up, or it's chained right after a probing bitch slap, as is often the case. We shall assess these examples now. After a good sword smack from the bitch slap, Isshin stoops quickly to power an impressive backwards jump, switching instantly to the spear, and uses its forward swiping motion as leverage for his mid-air suspense. The spear makes a complete 360-degree counterclockwise rotation, striking you midway, and is smoothly repositioned to its resting state on Isshin's shoulder. There are 3 methods to respond to this move. 1. Sword deflection. To time the deflection, watch for when both of Isshin's feet are clear off the ground and the swiping spear tip is pointing to your lower left. 2. Forward evasion. When applicable, after deflecting the probing bitch slap, immediately dash forward in order to run underneath the spear swipe, thereby ending up right next to Isshin. It can be tricky to master this maneuver. Upon a successful forward evasion, if you immediately attack with a single sword swipe, you will cancel any follow-up attacks that make up the combos covered in moves 56, 57, and 58. This is a great way to cut down the fight time. 3. Backward evasion. If there is a probing bitch slap for you to deflect, simply run backwards upon doing so. This maneuver is much easier to perform than evading forward. 56. Jump back spear swipe with gunshot barrage. As both these moves have been explained in detail, what follows are examples of countering this combo. 1. Without the probing bitch slap, evading the gunfire. 2. With the probing bitch slap. 3. Attacking during the jump back spear swipe. 4. Mist ravening through the gunfire. 5. Isshin's weird responses to mist ravening. 6. Evading the swipe, deflect blocking the gunfire. 7. Evading both the swipe and the gunfire. 8. Failure at forward evading the swipe. 9. Forward evading the swipe, cancelling the gunfire. 57. Jump back spear swipe with gunshot barrage and spear sweep. 'This is the most common combo to occur in conjunction with the jump back spear swipe. Following are examples of countering this combo. 1. With the probing bitch slap, evading the gunfire and head stomping the perilous sweep. 2. Reactionary, combo triggered by your attacks. 3. Getting hit by the gunfire. 4. Jumping the sweep without the head stomp. 5. Umbrella deflecting the gunfire. 6. Forward evading the swipe. 7. Forward evading the swipe, cancelling the gunfire and sweep. 8. Deflecting the swipe, forward dodging the fourth shot, jumping the sweep. 9. Unusual proximity immunity to the gunfire. 10. Backwards evading the swipe, buffing with 𝐷𝐼𝐿. 58. Jump back spear swipe with gunshot barrage and spear thrust. 'The chances of the type of perilous attack ending as a finisher to his combo family is 70% for sweeps and 30% for thrusts. Be mindful of the tells that differentiate the two moves, as you will often be tested in this regard. Here are examples of countering this combo. 1. Passive play, 𝐷𝐸 countering with no follow-up attack. 2. Aggressive play, attacking after 𝐷𝐸 counter. 3. Failure to evade the gunfire, quick to perform 𝐷𝐸 counter. 4. Evading the swipe and the gunfire, moving in to receive the 𝐷𝐸. 5. Evading the gunfire as well as the thrust, buffing with 𝐷𝐼𝐿. 6. Falling off the cliff while evading the gunfire. 7. Deflecting the swipe, forward dodging the fourth shot, receiving the 𝐷𝐸. 8. Deflecting the swipe, missing the forward dodge for the 4th shot, receiving the mikiri. 9. Forward evading the swipe. 10. Forward evading the swipe, cancelling the gunfire and thrust. 11. Failure to forward evade the swipe, quick to respond to the gunfire and thrust. 12. Mistaking the thrust for a sweep. 59. 7-hit wombo combo with spear thrust. 'This is a massive heavy-hitting combo of broken rhythm, opening with 2 sword attacks, followed with 4 spear strikes, then finishing with a perilous thrust. When all 6 sword and spear moves are performed, he will always execute the thrust without question. It is never a perilous sweep. Isshin initiates this combo by first rushing towards you in a lowered stance. He then makes ready for his first strike, gracefully flipping his body counterclockwise with his sword held high. In a windmill fashion, he swipes his blade downward, unleashing 2 rapid consecutive strikes in right-to-left fashion. He now switches to his spear, executing 2 mini-combos back-to-back. The first leans vertical in nature, in the form of an uppercut followed by a downward smash. He then shifts to circular strikes, twirling his spear twice in full 360-degree rotations. This is the exact same windmill attack listed under move number 20, the probing bitch slap uppercut windmill with spear thrust. The ending position of this windmill, his spear held high aloft his shoulder, is prime condition to perform his perilous thrust. Here is the same clip in real time for you to see and hear the deflection pattern. There are but 2 options in face of this combo: deflect or evade. If you are quick to recognize his preparatory wind-up, you can make a run for it, thereby evading the sword and spear combo. It's a good opportunity to heal or buff. You then have the choice to move back in to receive your mikiri counter. You may also heal after your mikiri counter, however, be quick to defend yourself. While you can get 1 hit in during his wind-up of this move, it's generally not a good idea, as the timing is too tight. Besides, the wombo combo is super armored and very difficult to interrupt. 60. 5-hit combo with AoE. This starts the same way as the 7-hit wombo combo, except now the windmill spear move is eliminated. Upon his 4th hit, the downward spear strike, he crouches and gathers wind powers for his AoE. It is the same preparatory stance as the AoE in his first phase. It also offers the exact same timing. The flick of his wrist is the key signal to trigger your deflection. What's different in this phase is that this AoE can be interrupted by a variety of means, with the same methods that Geni's Black Blade can be cancelled. We'll get to that fun part momentarily. For now, let's look at clips for the many ways you can counter this move, as well as examples of failure to show you what not to do. 1. Sword deflection. Sword deflection with no follow-up. Aggressive attacking during the wind-up. One attack prior to the sword spear combo. AoE blocked, resulting in a massive stagger and loss of vitality. 2. Head stomping. Head stomping the AoE without attacking. Head stomping the AoE holding block upon descent to regain your posture. Attacking right after the head stomp. Attacking before and after the head stomp. Executing an airborne Ichimonji paired with the head stomp. The riskiness of performing Ichimonji double with the head stomp. Two sequences of High Monk paired with the head stomp. Late head stomp, saved by mid-air deflection of the AoE. Missing the head stomp, nailing the last second deflection. Buffing with 𝐼𝐸 upon landing the head stomp. Three, umbrella deflection. Using the lilac umbrella to deflect the AoE, unleashing projected force right after, followed immediately by quick defense. Blocking with the lilac umbrella. Four, mist ravening. Using the teleportation feathers. Five, evasion. Avoiding the entire combo. Deploying Mist Raven as a precaution. Avoiding the entire combo, buffing with 𝐼𝐸. Deflecting the Sword Spear combo, evading the AoE. Evading the AoE with quick response to and perfect deflection of his rushing gunshot barrage. Six, forward dodging. Passively waiting for the wrist flick. Seven, interruption of the AoE. Cancelling with High Monk with two sequences only. Cancelling with Ichimonji double with an interesting example of iframes during the second Ichi, rendering Wolf immune to Isshin's probing bitch slap. The riskiness of deploying Ichimonji double as an interruption. Cancelling with firecrackers. Cancelling with the loaded axe. 21. 5-hit combo with Psych Slash. This is another variation of the 5-hit combo, where instead of preparing for his AoE, he throws out a lightning-fast leftward dashing slash immediately after the last downward spear strike as a means to psych you out. Always bear in mind that the block button is your friend and is therefore your most reliable panic maneuver. In this clip, you can see the psych slash without obscuration from the sparks of deflecting or blocking. This example was the result of greedy over-attacking during the wind-up of the Sword Spear combo. Same as this, with the addition of the spectacular waste of a precious resource. 62. 5-hit combo with Psych combo. This is an extremely rare instance of Isshin chaining his delayed sword and spear move, number 21 in this phase, with his 5-hit sword spear combo. 63. 5-hit combo with one-handed Ichi. This is also a rather rare follow-up to his 5-hit combo, where upon landing the last downward spear strike, he spins around with his sword already poised directly overhead in the unmistakable preparation for his Ichimonji. Timing the deflection for this one is the same as all his other Ichimonji variations. 64. Reactionary AoE. Besides using this as a finisher to his 5-hit combo, Isshin also throws out his AoE as a reactionary move, meaning it is triggered by your attacks. The telltale sound that indicates the probable execution of his AoE is when you attack Isshin twice and he blocks your first hit but deflects your second. It's a dull, higher-pitched clang for the first, and a second one that's lower-pitched but with a much more resonating quality. Upon this sequence, the likelihood of him immediately charging up for his AoE is quite high. It's the same AoE with the same timing and can be countered the same ways. Let's look at some examples. Sword deflection. Umbrella deflection, followed by projected force and a speedy response to Isshin's ferocious retaliation. Mistimed umbrella deflection, resulting in a block. Passively waiting for the wrist flick before performing the forward dodge. Attacking once before the forward dodge. Attacking twice before the forward dodge. Attacking once, mistiming the forward dodge. Mist Ravening, followed by a Fang and Blade swipe, as well as a lightning fast deflection against Isshin's counterattacks. Head Stomp with 2 sequences of High Monk. Mistimed Head Stomp, punished by the AoE during execution of High Monk. Interrupting with 2 sequences of High Monk. Interrupting with 3 sequences of High Monk. interrupting with Ichimonji double, though punished by Isshin's retaliatory probing bitch slap up-down combo. Failure to interrupt with leaping flame spear, though still executing good damage. '65, ridiculous combo. Here's a rare instance of Isshin flexing with his ability to combine an absurd number of moves. The leaping spear slam, double tap punisher, jump back spear swipe, tracking gunshot barrage ending with a spear thrust. Part 7. Isshin's third phase. You've reached the final lap. There's only a bit more to go and you're home free. The arena is now lit up by lightning, stabbing vertically into the ground at random, though none of these will strike you or cause you harm. The moves that can appear in his third phase are not too different from his second phase. However, you are now gifted with the ability to reverse Isshin's lightning, which should shave this final phase down considerably. In fact, after the second death blow, Isshin tends to open the final showdown with a lightning attack, just to get you going. There are a total of 5 unique move variations for you to learn. Let's begin with 1. Double Shockwave. This is an unblockable, non-perilous attack, meaning you take vitality damage upon blocking. Isshin likes to throw this one out after creating some distance, perhaps via staggering you with a single gunshot, or his AoE, or from simply faffing off with his crossover advance. Sometimes, however, he can surprise us and bust it out of nowhere while we're at close range. The wind-up for his double shockwave is similar to that of his AoE, though much faster, and absent of a wrist flick. Instead, he absorbs wind powers, then uses his sword to throw them out one after another in 2 diagonal V-shaped shockwaves that extend far across the arena. This move can be countered in a variety of ways. 1. Sword deflection. Timing for deflecting this attack is a little tricky due to its delay. There is a momentary split-second lapse between the fall of Isshin's blade and the appearance of each shockwave being thrown our way. The most reliable indicator is the shimmering white waveform. When their lines are at their thickest and brightest, tap your block button to deflect. The first waveform hits you swiftly. It appears just as fast as it traverses. The second waveform takes ever so slightly longer to reach you. 2. Umbrella deflection. With the same timing as deflecting with your sword, throw out your umbrella at the fall of the first shockwave. Wait half a beat, then spin your umbrella to deflect the second one. If the opportunity presents itself, inch forward while under your turtle shell, and then unleash projected force. 3. Mist Raven. Right when the first shockwave is about to land, trigger your prosthetic so the feathers can absorb the damage for you. At the same time, push your directional analog forward at a 45-degree angle from where Isshin is standing. This will ensure that when you hit your attack button to unleash Fang and Blade, your blade will actually find its mark. Since the double shockwave takes some time to execute and also has a little bit of a cooldown, you can use the Mist Raven in this instance to carve out your own windows for healing and buffing. Just be ready to defend yourself immediately. 4. Evasion. There are 2 ways you can evade the double shockwave. You can perform a right then left step dodge, Right before the first waveform comes at you, you dodge to the right, and right before the second waveform, you dodge to the left. You can also simply bolt at an angle to either the left or the right. Do not hesitate or veer your course, as the shockwaves can track you. Also bear in mind that the shockwaves go through obstacles. The boulders won't shield you. 5. Interruption. If you feel compelled to use this method, bear in mind that 1. It might be tricky as the double shockwave is usually performed at a distance. And 2. You don't have much time to think before he strikes. Consider using firecrackers. Throw them out right as the wind forms are still being absorbed into Isshin. If you wait till they've disappeared, it'll be too late. And while you can still land half an interruption, it'd be at the cost of getting hit by the first shockwave. 2. Single shockwave. While this variation does occur with rarity, you've nothing to fear. It exists only to trip you up for a second. It seems to be triggered by your close proximity. Its timing is exactly the same as the double shockwave, simply with one fewer swipe. Counter it as you would with the previously covered methods. 3. Jump back lightning swipe. This is one of 2 lightning-imbued attacks that Isshin now performs, which are essentially gifted to you for glorious retribution. It is both compulsory and reactionary. He can do this at any time, regardless of your actions. However, he can also be triggered into it.
There are 4 viable ways to counter this move. We'll begin with 1. Jump reversal.
Isshin crouches slightly, then leaps away from you, up into the air in suspended animation, one leg raised high. He holds his spear aloft, and the red kanji appears right as his spear receives a bolt of lightning from the sky, which imbues the entire length of the spear, save for its handle, with a blinding light that extends far to the ground. As the kanji fades, he swipes forward to the ground in a counterclockwise 360-degree rotation that leaves massive residual trails of lightning. It is at this moment, when the kanji is still barely visible, and when the spear is glowing at its brightest, that you jump forward and, while airborne, follow up immediately with a single sword attack. In doing so, you're able to jump over the lightning as it touches the ground. You are hit by it. Because you triggered your attack button, the lightning registers as only hitting your sword, thereby resulting in chip damage. Your now alarmingly bright sword is empowered with lightning, which with one swing is thrown back at Isshin, electrocuting him and rendering him temporarily immobile from the shock status. During this window, you can attack him twice before he recovers, usually with a swift counterattack. Bear in mind the importance of jumping forward. Because of the distance that Isshin creates from leaping back, there is a high chance that your reversal will be just out of range. You are then left wide open upon executing your attack, giving him the perfect opportunity to punish you, with usually the tracking gunshot barrage. There is nothing you can do to defend against this either, as the animation of lightning reversal lasts too long for you to be able to respond by blocking. So, in short, jump forward for your reversals. Another way to ensure successful reversals is to position yourself carefully by inching forward as Isshin makes his preparatory move. However, this requires deft recognition of the tells of this move.
2. Jump deflect reversal. This is similar to the jump reversal, with the added mid-air deflection of Isshin's lightning. While this method does eliminate chip damage versus the Okami, it's a benefit that does not apply to bosses. The window for performing this move is more lenient than that of simply jump reversing. There are 2 ways to perform this move successfully. You can opt for the same timing as a regular jump reversal, initiating while the kanji is fading but still visible. Or you can wait till the kanji is almost completely gone. Both iterations necessitate different timings for the sequence of required inputs. For the earlier start, wait for Isshin's spear to glow at its brightest as the kanji just begins to fade. Then either jump towards him while holding block, or jump towards him and immediately tap block right as the bolt of lightning makes its forward swipe. Either way, a successful lightning deflection is marked by an unmistakable, high-pitched ding. Swiftly tap attack to send the lightning back. The speed of this sequence should allow you to reverse the lightning while still in mid-air. For the later start, you are left with only one option. Focus on the kanji. Wait until it's almost dissipated, then jump forward while holding block. The ding will mark your successful deflection. Immediately hit attack to reverse the lightning. 2 notes. 1. Whether you end up blocking the lightning, which sounds markedly lower pitched, or deflecting it, the amount of chip damage you receive remains the same. 2. Aside from the oral indicator, there's a visual one that confirms a successful deflection. Upon receiving the lightning with his sword held up in defense, Wolf remains upright in mid-air. Contrarily, jump reversals devoid of a lightning deflection results in Wolf being thrown back in mid-air. There are pros and cons to this method. On the upside, the reversal of lightning is now performed much quicker than a regular jump reversal. With the mid-air lightning deflection, the reversed lightning hits Isshin while you're still airborne. This means that upon your descent, you can immediately dash towards Isshin and get your hits in, while he's immobile and vulnerable. With a regular jump reversal, the lightning is reversed just as you touch ground, which results in a cooldown period. This cuts down your window for attacking or healing and buffing. With Isshin's response and recovery times, even an extra second can make a difference. The major drawback to this maneuver is that it requires one more input, tapping block, which increases the chance of failure. Here is the move once more, one variant performed for each of the earlier and later timing options. Three, Mist Raven Lightning Reversal.
Take heed, this method only works under 2 conditions. 1. On patches 1.04 and up. And 2. With the activation of Fang and Blade, a prosthetic skill. There are pros and cons to using the feathers versus Isshin's lightning. On the upside, you will not take chip damage. However, this comes at the cost of 2 emblems per use for the first 2 Mistraven variants and 3 emblems for the Fire version. Timing for triggering your prosthetic is exactly the same as jump reversals. Wait for the kanji to fade and for the spear to glow at its brightest. Then press your prosthetics button without touching your directional analog stick, followed by your attack button. If you hit your attack button too late, as can be the case with jump reversals as well, you will receive the shock status upon your descent. The reason for omitting direction for this is because the mechanics of the Mistraven dictates that, upon its use, without directional input, you'll naturally be sent up into the sky. If you push in any direction during this particular usage, you will be shocked. Just like when deployed against any other move, using the Mistraven here grants you a window to attack, heal, or buff. Be mindful of your distance from Isshin. If you are too close or too far away, your reversal will fail to connect, sometimes with devastating consequences.
4. Evasion.
If you prefer to not take the chip damage from jump reversals, or spend the emblems for Mistravening, you can evade this lightning attack by either running under it or away from it. The timing for evading comes earlier than reversals. Here's how to run beneath this lightning attack. As Isshin goes airborne and his spear becomes imbued, along with the appearance of the red kanji, dash towards him without hesitation. Continue dashing underneath him while the lightning attack is being carried out. And during its very tail end, begin swerving back around so that you'll end up right behind him. If you stop while you're still beneath him, you will remain within the hitbox of the lightning attack and therefore be shocked. If you run just a bit too far and do not swerve back around soon enough to end up right behind him, the distance you've created will trigger a ranged attack, namely his tracking gunshot barrage. And here's how to run away from it. Because of how far the lightning extends on its forward range, you will need to start bolting away as soon as Isshin begins to rise from his slight crouching position, which is also when the kanji makes its appearance. Run, and don't stop running until the lightning attack is complete. Sometimes you might be a fraction too late. Fear not, you can still make it if you jump right before the lightning swipes down to the ground, allowing you to clear it. Be mindful, and due to the immense distance you've created, this will almost certainly trigger Isshin's tracking gunshot barrage. Keep a close eye on him. When he's landed from performing his lightning swipe, he'll perform those exact same tells of reaching into his clothing, pulling out his firearm, and aiming directly at you with an outstretched arm. 4. Vertical Lightning Slam. This is Isshin's other lightning attack. It utilizes the same tells and animation as his leaping spear slam. While Isshin is airborne, a bolt of lightning from the sky connects with his spear, imbuing it with blinding power. At the same time, the red kanji appears. This move has massive forward momentum as Isshin arcs his lightning spear through the air, painting a brilliant semicircle of trailing electricity. He then slams it hard into you or the ground upon his descent.
There are 4 viable methods to counter this move. 1. Jump reversal.
This maneuver is somewhat trickier to time than for the jump back lightning swipe, mainly due to the visual obstruction. It also requires deft positioning. As Isshin leaps towards you, start walking backwards. When he's suspended almost directly above you, poised to strike, you must wait for the kanji to just fade completely, while ensuring that the lightning on his spear is still trailing behind him. Then jump backwards and hit your attack button in order to receive the lightning and send it back. There is a chance that your reversal will fail to connect. Be ready to defend yourself against Isshin's swift punishment, usually of the rushing double tap variety.
2. Jump deflect reversal. In principle, this method is basically the same as countering the previous move, the jump back lightning swipe. The only difference is that you'll need to step back for the lightning to connect. The timing options are the same in terms of initiating earlier while the kanji is fading, or later when the kanji has just dissipated. For the earlier timing, step back as Isshin begins his ascent. Wait for the kanji to begin to fade, either jump while holding block, or jump and then tap the block button. Hit attack to throw the lightning back. For the later timing, step back while Isshin prepares to fly at you. The moment the kanji is no longer visible, jump while holding block. Then hit attack to throw the lightning back. 3. Mist Raven Lightning Reversal.
The timing for triggering your prosthetic is exactly the same as jump reversing. Take care to step back as Isshin is leaping towards you so that you'll be able to receive the lightning more accurately. While the lightning on his spear is still trailing behind him, and the kanji is just completely faded, hit your prosthetics button to unfurl the feathers. Do not touch your directional analog stick. Immediately follow up with your attack button to throw the lightning back. Enjoy the onslaught.
4. Evasion.
Since this lightning variant takes time and repeated effort to reverse properly, it's actually much safer and easier to simply run underneath or away from it. Running underneath it gives you the opportunity to follow up swiftly with an attack. Running away is more viable for healing and buffing. To run underneath it, dash directly beneath him the moment Isshin leaps up towards the direction he came from. As he makes his descent, make a sharp U-turn back to him in order to get an attack in, usually 1 or 2 sword swipes or one sequence of a combat art. If you run too far and don't make it back to him quickly enough to land your attacks, he will punish your misjudgment by lashing out with alarming speed, usually with a double tap. It's generally not a good idea to heal or buff after running underneath him, no matter how far you overshoot him, as he recovers from his cooldown immediately to come at you, covering great distance, with a fast yet heavy attack, such as the lateral Punisher. Running away from the vertical lightning slam requires deft knowledge of the tells of this move. The moment Isshin begins to crouch, you must already begin running away. Do not stop until after the lightning has dissipated. Only then will you have created the distance necessary to perform any healing, clear out of reach from any of Isshin's retribution. 5. Spear Slam with single gunshot and vertical lightning slam. Part 8. Full fight demo with perfect deflections, no commentary.
Sekiro!
Part 9. Just Chatting. Thank you for watching my guide on how to beat the Sword Saint. I hope you found some useful tactics to help you conquer the game. Now, I do have a lot of people to thank, but I wish to preface this with a couple of points that I feel some people can actually relate to. This guide could easily have run to 6 hours long. With this many moves and so many combat mechanics involving prosthetics and combat arts and even taking advantage of iframes, it's the kind of fight that allows for a spectacular array of creativity for the player. It's a testament to Miyazaki and his From Software team, their passion, creativity, and their dedication and monumental hard work, giving us one of the most thoughtfully designed end bosses in a genre-defining masterpiece. Their creations continue to achieve what I believe is magical, bringing like-minded people together, forging new outlooks, and changing lives. Many times I've been approached by fellow content creators, most of whom are just starting out, seeking advice on video editing, more specifically advice on how to build boss guides. Now, there's a lot that goes into video editing. When it comes to boss guides, if I could summarize everything that I had learned in one sentence, I'd say this. Because I always want to do it right, make something that's both comprehensive and, most importantly, helpful to my target audience, I could never assume I could do all this on my own. Now, indeed, the bulk work is indeed on me, because I want to follow my own principles, which means insisting on using my own footage, which means a whole lot of trial and error and documenting and so much organizing. But no matter how thorough a person can be, at the end of the day, nothing beats one extra pair of eyes and ears. When building works that follow along the veins of boss guides and lore videos, I believe I can only go so far leaning on my own experiences. Even when I've got 1,800 hours dedicated towards this game over the course of 4 years. So, while I did write the script and record over 100 gigabytes of footage and record all the VOCs and performed all the hundreds of tasks that go towards building a video from the ground up, I could never have done any of this on my own. I am so blessed to have singularly incredible individuals in my life whom I can call friends. These people have, for many years, continued to believe in me and stand by me as I try to do the same for them. Thank you, Andrew, Leuku D&D, our Dungeon Master, and now Court Stenographer. Congratulations, by the way. Thank you for your stellar work in editing the script. It's a monumental Mount Everest of a task, and I am so grateful that you agreed to scale it with me. Thank you, Josh, Dirty Jazz Hands, our resident guitarist extraordinaire, for so selflessly proofreading over 100 pages of the script and for listening to over 3 hours of the box as it was slowly accumulating at the time, and for assisting me with editing the script whenever I needed to build supplementary content. Thank you, Steve Destroma, live show producer and keyest of audio engineers, for designing my sound system and for so meticulously working towards its overall improvement, and for your tinkering of my numerous Vox profiles, as well as giving the audio of this video its final tune-up. Thank you, Swen, Alpha 545 Gaming, one of our realm's real-life shinobis, for always springing to immediate action whenever I needed verification on a number of tactics, and for so patiently teaching me how to perform a number of countermeasures that I'd previously not thought possible. Thank you to the rest of my core channel management team, Ollie, Avi, Izzy Girl, and Noah. Thank you for your joint endeavors in keeping the realm ship afloat. Massive thank you to Patreon and YouTube members for believing in the key achieving month upon month, year upon year. Thank you for shaping the channel and its community. Thank you also to community members for taking time out of your key days to watch the work-in-progress video clips that I'd been posting over the last 2 years. And thank you also to subscribers and new viewers. Thank you so much for going along on this ride with me. If you'd like to mingle with fellow Sekiro fans, most of whom are also fans of FromSoft's modern titles, please consider joining our Discord server. We're a realm full of musicians and culinary aficionados and visual artists, and we have a home. And I am so happy, so grateful that we have this little cozy corner for so many of us to find a sense of belonging to and camaraderie among fellow gamers. The link to join is in the description of this video, as well as on the About section of the channel page. Once again, thank you for watching my guide, and I hope this can help you to complete your Sekiro journey. You've come all this way already. I believe in you.